Chapter 799. The next moment, Bei Yunj heard the old man ask, "You're the bad girl that Shidu raised?" The first time he spoke to her, he was cheated of hundreds of millions. Fernans had a deep impression of this guy. "Where did you get the news from, sir?" Bei Yunj curled her lips lazily. She did not mind Fernan's angry look. Instead, she asked leisurely. After all, with her brother's personality, he would not take the initiative to mention her to this person. "You want to know?" The old man's expression was cold as the corners of his mouth twitched, and he asked coldly. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows, and did not want to talk anymore. "Can I go back now?" When the old man heard this, he immediately became angry. "Why don't you respect the old and love the young at all? Have you ever seen a bad girl respect the old and love the young?" Bei Yunj seemed to have thought of something. Suddenly, the corners of her lips curled up as she said leisurely, "In this line of work, we like to run away after cheating money." These words made the old man speechless. He looked at Bei Yunj in shock. It was also the first time the butler had met such a young girl with a temperament that he couldn't figure out. Why would Master do like such a girl? Was it because she was good-looking? "How dare you?" Fernans was speechless. Suddenly, Bei Yunj's eyes curved as she asked, "Grandpa, I'm hungry. Can I go to your place for a meal?" Fernans was stunned for a moment before he instinctively said, "Sure." However, after Bei Yunj finished her call and spoke to Zhong Xinglin, Fernans finally realized why he was so good to this bad girl. OK Composition Network Bayesian Manor. The European-style hall was magnificent. Outside the bright and tall windows, there were roses and green plants. Fernans crossed his arms and looked unhappily at Bei Yunj, who was eating dinner. After a while, Bei Yunj stabbed a piece of steak with a silver fork. She glanced at the schedule that Zhong Xinglin had arranged for her as she slowly chewed on it. "Why are you playing with your phone while eating?" Fernand snatched her phone and put it somewhere Bei Yunj could not get to it. Bei Yunj stopped eating. "Have you not eaten for 10 years? Why didn't Shida teach you to eat properly?" Fernand snatched Bei Yunj's porcelain plate, picked up the unused knife and fork, and carefully cut it. She placed the cut steak on the white plate in front of Bei Yunj and muttered with a frown, "What's wrong with eating like this? You better eat properly." In fact, although Bei Yunj's table manners were not very proper, she was good-looking and her movements were elegant. However, the old man was born in a noble family and had followed the most meticulous etiquette his entire life. Hence, when the butler asked the servants to bring in a few more dishes, this was the scene that greeted his eyes. The old man, who had never served anyone in his 8 lifetimes, was seriously cutting the steak for Bei Yunj. When he saw that Bei Yunj had eaten too much, he even handed her a glass of water. The butler was speechless. If the young masters in the family saw this scene, they would probably think that she was the old man's illegitimate daughter. "Don't just eat meat. You have to eat more vegetables too." Fernans forgot the reason why he was looking for Bei Yunj, and instructed the butler, "Prepare fruit juice for her next time. She's still growing." The butler said, "Okay. Didn't he say that he wanted to intimidate Master Du's little girl? What are you doing? Using the coldest way to feed her the most delicious food while Master Du doesn't know." Chapter 800. It was not until Bei Yunj finished eating that Fernans nodded in satisfaction. "That was more like it. Sir, the room prepared for Miss has also been arranged." The butler reminded him appropriately. Hearing this, Bei Yunj said, "No need. I have a place to stay. Thank you, Mr. Butler." Fernans frowned and looked at Bei Yunj. "You want to stay outside?" "Yes, I'm here as an exchange student this time. I'm staying in the student dormitory," Bei Yunj said calmly. Fernans was silent for a moment before he said, "Call someone to pick you up at 1 o'clock that night. Neely is not as safe as Yincheng at night." Bei Yunj replied, "Okay." Fernans nodded in satisfaction and said, "There's a study on the 2nd floor. Are you going to do your homework?" Bei Yunj looked up at him. "I don't do homework." Fernans? Very good, very self-righteous. Fernans comforted himself silently in his heart. It was okay. It didn't matter if he was a bad student. It was already rare enough for Shidu to like women. What else could he be picky about? Fernans had always seen the younger generation in the family. Most of them were mature and wanted to study every day. A few hedonistic sons did not dare to say in front of Fernans that they did not like to study or do homework. Hence, Fernans thought for a long time, but did not know how to get along with the bad students. He could only say, "There's a television over there. Go watch it." The butler. If this continued, Fernans's biological granddaughter would be proven to be true. Bei Yunge's eyes twitched. Okay. Soon. Bei Yunge sat on the sofa on the other side, randomly picked a program, and read documents on her phone. Come and read. Fernans, who was not far away, looked at Bei Yunge with a numb gaze. It was obvious that she was hopeless. Then, just as Fernans was about to go upstairs to calm down, hearty laughter suddenly sounded from the door. Fernans, I just came to look for you and you're already going upstairs? Fernans turned around and saw old Mr. Angel with his beloved granddaughter beside him. Why did you bring Lilia here so late at night? Fernans still had a displeased look on his face. Angel was also used to his old friend's sour face. He smiled vaguely. Didn't I hear that something happened to your family again? Fernans glanced at him and said indifferently, Your information is really accurate. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to pry into your family's situation. But Fernans, I've seen that child a few times. He's very outstanding. Are you willing to send him away? Angel asked. What happened to the Fernans family was nothing else. Instead, someone had waited for too long and was impatient. They wanted to force Fernans to hand over his real power and take over as soon as possible. However, what he did not expect was that even if Fernans did not interfere in the family's affairs, his methods were still ruthless. They directly captured him and threw him into a city where his power was marginalized. This was no different from forcing him to withdraw from the battle for the position of successor. As I said, I already have a suitable successor in mind. Fernans glanced at him unhappily. Then he seemed to have thought of something and scolded. Keep your voice down. There are children watching TV over there. Mr. Angel. Subsequently, Angel and Lilia were both curious. Fernans was famous for being strict with the younger generation of the family. Which junior was watching TV and was actually so favored? Lilia took a few glances but could not see anyone. Chapter 801. He turned around. Angel smiled and said, Actually, I brought Lilia here to discuss something with you. When Fernans looked at him, she heard him say, Marriage alliance. How about marrying your heir? If this was in the past, Fernans would have agreed quickly. But at this moment, Fernans' eyelids twitched. He glanced at the person watching TV not far away, and his lips twitched. No need. With that said, Fernans turned around and wanted to go upstairs, but was stopped by Angel. Why aren't you willing? Angel raised his voice. Lilia, who was beside him, was also surprised and frowned. She liked Huashidu and knew that he had a woman by his side. However, could it be that Fernans would admit to that woman? What's the use of me being willing? I'm not the one getting married. Fernans rolled his eyes and thought for a moment before saying, Besides, I don't lack a granddaughter-in-law. What do you mean? Don't tell me you think that the Delaney family is doing better now and don't like my family? Angel frowned. Now that the Delaney group had the help of that new scientific researcher, its development could be said to have improved by leaps and bounds. However, our nation's plate was only so big. If the Delaney family ate more, there would naturally be families who ate less. And this unlucky family happened to be the Angel family. After all, Angel and Delaney were the closest to each other in most industries. This was like celebrities clashing. There would always be one who would be eliminated. Boring. Fernans snorted. At this moment, Lilia said, Grandpa Fernans, you know that I like Shidu very much. Can't you give me a chance? This time, if not for the fact that the Delaney family had jumped into the four big families and endangered the Angel family's position, her grandfather and her aunt, Elena, would not have agreed to her taking the initiative to fight for the marriage alliance. Seeing that Fernans did not relent, Angel said in a low voice, Fernans, that person from the Higgins family is back. Hearing this, Fernans turned to look at him. What? Shang Yin is back. Angel's thoughts were heavy. I heard that he has the intention to work with the Delaney family. If that was the case, wouldn't the Higgins family be preparing to make a comeback? What about the Angel family? Sooner or later, they would be kicked out of the 4 great clans. Fernans was silent for a moment. Angel, if you're really worried about losing your position, you should spend more time on the business. Besides, your daughter is so outstanding. What are you afraid of? Elena is outstanding, so I handed the family over to her early on. Angel wanted to say something but hesitated. But Elena was Angel's daughter, and she was talented in business. He was proud of it. However, Elena's methods were too cruel. In fact, after taking over the clan, he even set up quite a few shady businesses. Even after Elena took over the family had prospered day by day. But Angel was also afraid that one day, his family would be defeated by Elena. The variable in the Delaney family is because of that young researcher. Or, do you want to try changing the research team? Fernans thought for a moment. Angel's eyelids twitched. Even if we switch, it'll be difficult to compare to that new scientific researcher. She was nominated for both Farizic and Busaka this year. So powerful. Fernans was surprised. How old is the new noble? It is said that he is very young, in his 30s. Chapter 802. So young? Fernans was shocked. I heard that she's from country, eh? To be nominated for the highest awards in the academic world at such a young age. She was indeed a top-notch genius. At this moment, Bei Yunj, who was on the sofa, was reading Tich and Jasmine's report. He was immersed in self-doubt and did not notice that someone was discussing behind him. Angel smiled bitterly. That's right. I'm afraid there's no other scientific research genius like her in our nation. With that said, Angel had thought that Fernans would at least comfort him. Unexpectedly, this old thing was silent for a long time before he sighed. How good would it be if she was from my family? Angel's eyelids twitched. Fernans still told the truth. Shidu has an ordinary girl by his side. Although she doesn't have a good temperament and isn't ambitious, she's beautiful. With that, Fernans nodded affirmatively, as if he was hypnotizing himself. Yes, it's good that she's beautiful. Heartless old man in his next life. The marriage is feasible, but Shidu has other arrangements. Why don't you choose someone else? From Fernans' words, it was obvious that his grandson, who had the worst relationship with Fernans, held a high position in his heart. Then, Angel was in disbelief. You're willing to accept this? Why do I have to worry so much? Isn't it fine as long as he's happy? At first, he thought that this was a favored junior of the Fernans family. Yes. Fernans raised his chin and gestured for them to look at the television. There, she's over there. You can greet her, but don't scare her. Angel suddenly looked up. That's the girl Shidu is raising? Continue watching TV. Fernans immediately said. Fernans coughed lightly. Perhaps it was because the voice had suddenly become louder. Bei Yunj could not help but raise his eyebrows and glance at Fernans and the rest. Fernans gave them a fake smile. Yes, she doesn't like to do homework, so we can only let her watch TV. Angel. She was indeed not motivated. Bei Yunj was silent for a moment before he turned around. At this moment, All right, I'll send you guys off first. Fernans was about to get rid of her when he suddenly heard Lilia say, Miss, do you still remember me? He was really treating his granddaughter as his own granddaughter. However, she was indeed beautiful. Her beauty was irresistible to both the east and west. She raised her eyebrows and smiled. I remember. Lilia clenched her fists. She didn't expect it to be her. Hearing this, Bei Yunj turned around and saw a blonde woman. It was the female celebrity who had knocked on the door to look for Hoshidu when she was video chatting with him at the hotel. Bei Yunj glanced at her, and then looked away. International exchange student. Really? What a coincidence. I'm a student at Neely University. I wonder if I have the chance to meet you at Neely University? Old Mr. Fernans actually accepted such a person. Miss, is this your first time in country R? What are you here for? Lilia did it on purpose. She remembered Fernans's words just now, and could roughly guess that the girl in front of her was just lucky that Hoshidu had taken a fancy to her. She did not think that Bei Yunj could be an exchange student at Neely University. However, Lilia did not notice that as soon as she finished speaking, Fernand's expression darkened. Chapter 803. Isn't it very late? Bad girl, call your teacher and get someone to pick you up. Fernand interrupted her and said calmly. This made Lilia's expression stiffen. She instinctively looked at Fernand's. It was not difficult to sense that Fernand was protecting Bei Yunj. She pursed her lips and was about to say something when Angel stopped her. Bei Yunj replied, okay. But unexpectedly, Bei Yunj called Zhong Shenglin and the rest several times, but no one picked up. Didn't he say that he was coming to pick her up an hour ago? However, Fernand was very happy to see her. You can't get through? It's fine if you can't get through. I've already prepared a room for you on the second floor. Butler, get someone to bring her upstairs. The butler's eyelids twitched. After answering, he immediately arranged for the maid to bring Bei Yunj upstairs. Only Angel and Lilia did not look too good. On the other side near the pier, Si Qingyan held a cigarette between his fingers and looked at the two drunk old men expressionlessly. He did not notice that there were a few missed calls on his phone. If he had not stopped him just now, the news the next day would have been Zhong Shenglin and Marcus, the pioneers of the computing field in Country A and R, suspected of jumping into the sea to commit suicide. Before Si Qingyan could take out his phone, he suddenly heard Marcus crying in grief and indignation. Why can Lanjun pick it up but I can't? Boo-hoo! Why am I not her grandfather? Si Qingyan's eyelids twitched, and he gave up on playing with his phone. Good Lord, he was so drunk that he had designs on Bei Yunj? Soon. Marcus's words resonated with Zhong Shenglin. The two of them hugged and cried sadly. Si Qingyan took a deep breath. The two of you left. It's already very late. We still have work to do tomorrow. At this moment, Zhong Shenglin and Marcus ignored Si Qingyan. Instead, after crying for a long time, Zhong Shenglin suddenly looked up and patted Marcus's back, comforting him. Marcus, you are. Marcus was greatly moved and comforted each other. Zhong, you too. Si Qingyan was speechless. Shouldn't you ask Bei Yunj if you're the same? He should really record this scene and show it to Bei Yunj. However, in the blink of an eye, Si Qingyan realized that something was wrong with the two of them. Crooked? How are you? I'm your grandfather. Marcus held the phone and started to giggle. Si Qingyan had a bad feeling. Marcus, what are you doing? Marcus ignored Si Qingyan and just leaned against Zhong Shenglin in a drunken stupor. The corners of the person's mouth twitched. This is the Neely police station. Please don't use the line. What did he say? Marcus turned his head and asked. Zhong Shenglin, he said burp, he's from the Neely police station. Si Qingyan's body trembled, and he immediately went forward to snatch Zhong Shenglin and Marcus's phones. Were the two of them unhappy about not making the headlines tonight? Did they have to make such a big fuss? Si Qingyan only sent the two of them back at 1 o'clock in the morning. On the other side, Fuwei Rose Manor. Lilia bit her lip and walked into the hall aggressively in her high heels. Why are you bullied? Then you can marry someone else. The woman in the purple dress smiled disapprovingly. Fernand likes that girl a lot. Why? How can I not compare to that girl? Lilia could not hold back her anger and sneered. She's so ordinary. I wonder if those people from the Fernand's family are blind. Chapter 804. Lilia turned around and saw that Elena was unmoved. She said, Auntie, I'm indignant. She's just an ordinary high school student. A high school student? Why did she come to Neely? Elena turned around and asked. She's an exchange student, but she's probably an exchange student from some random university. Lilia's tone was mocking. A top school like Neely University would not casually recruit high school exchange students. Elena raised an eyebrow. Not long after, she sneered. All right, isn't this easy to deal with? In Neely, accidents are the most common. Hearing this, Lilia froze. Auntie, you're talking about. If he's no longer around, how can I snatch him from you? Elena asked slowly. Lilia's expression changed. Auntie, there's no need. Elena looked at her sideways and smiled coldly. Lilia, don't you want that man? I'll snatch him back from her, Auntie. Lilia said in a firm tone, and hurriedly ran upstairs to give Strength Literature Network. Elena's tone was mocking. She's also useless. Stupid and timid. The next day, when Si Qingyan went to pick up Bei Yunj according to the address, he couldn't help but be surprised. This address was a famous wealthy district in Nili, and the Baisheng Manor was home to the number one family, the Fernan's family. How did Bei Yunj know the Fernan's family? After walking out, Bei Yunj looked at Si Qingyan. Why didn't you come to pick me up yesterday? Si Qingyan. Marcus and Elder Zhong were drunk yesterday and couldn't leave. Bei Yunj thought about the person at home who could not hold his liquor well, and nodded in understanding. Let's go to the computing institute in our nation first. I still have something to look for Tich and the rest. Bei Yunj sat in the front passenger seat and said slowly. Si Qingyan was silent for a long time. Actually, the professor of the mathematics department of Nili University has asked you out several times. Bei Yunj turned to look at him and said word by word. No. Si Qingyan. All right, sorry for the trouble. Don't make trouble for me. Bei Yunj lowered her head, her tone casual and indifferent. It wasn't because he had a feud with the Nili University mathematics professor. It was because there were many professors in the mathematics department of Nili University. In the past month, more than 10 professors had added Bei Yunj's private account, but the rest had not. Bei Yunj saw different professors asking her almost every day when she would change her major, and if she had any intention of joining the math department at Nili University. If she went to Nili University's mathematics department today, with those people's persistence, she didn't even know if she could leave Nili University. However, Si Qingyan looked down and did not say anything. But an hour later, Bei Yunj glanced at the red brick buildings outside the window. Young men and women were coming and going. Not far away, there were green rivers and white geese, reflecting the blue sky and clouds. She realized that something was wrong. Where is this? Si Qingyan bit the bullet and continued driving. Nili University. Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched. Stop the car. Master Pei, don't. We've already discussed this with the principal of Nili University. Si Qingyan ignored Bei Yunj's cold gaze. Soon. Bei Yunj suddenly smiled. You're not stopping, right? Si Qingyan suddenly had an ominous feeling. Suddenly, the steering wheel in his hand was grabbed by a cold and beautiful hand and turned around. F***CK, wait a minute. What are you doing? Stop. Si Qingyan could not win against Bei Yunj, and saw that the car was about to fall into the clear river beside him. Chapter 805. The next moment, Si Qingyan hurriedly grabbed the steering wheel and turned the car back steadily. However, the girl sitting next to him opened the door and jumped out of the car without anyone noticing. Bei Yunj. Si Qingyan immediately stopped the car. When he got out of the car, she was already gone. It was over. Old Master Zhong was going to kill him when he woke up. Si Qingyan rubbed his glabella and called the people from Nili University. Vast sky-green field, by the river. The exquisite-looking girl pursed her lips. Her beautiful gray eyes were emotionless. What attracted attention was her thick white curly hair. Caitlin, who exactly is your father? The men and women surrounding her had unfriendly smiles on their faces as they asked casually. Could he really be a rapist? Caitlin hugged the folder in her hand and said coldly, Get lost. Oh, are you angry? How about I let you go after a smoke? The young man deliberately stood in front of Caitlin and handed the cigarette in his hand to her with evil intentions. Caitlin looked up and wanted to slap his hand away, but then she heard a gloomy laugh in her ear. Your flower protector isn't here today. Can you leave after offending me? Smoke one, and I'll let you go. How about that? The people beside them were watching the show. They turned on their cameras and prepared to film this scene. Caitlin's eyes were cold and murderous as her thoughts ran wild. However, not long after, she clenched her fists, took a deep breath, and reached out to the cigarette the young man handed her. The people around were watching a good show. But suddenly, there was a rustling sound from the water. Everyone subconsciously looked in that direction, and suddenly saw a figure break out of the water. They were so frightened that they instinctively took half a step back. However, on closer inspection, they realized that the person was too beautiful. Her black hair was wet, her lips were red, and her teeth were white. Her eyes were wild but charming, and her sharp chin was still dripping with water. Ebook workshop UUU. Everyone was scared out of their wits and could not react. Why did a person jump out of the river? Bei Yunj glanced at them casually, and her gaze landed on Caitlin. Before Caitlin could react, a clear and arrogant voice rang in her ears. May I borrow a cigarette, classmate? Caitlin was stunned. Before she could react, Bei Yunj had already walked to her side, took her cigarette, and was ready to leave. At this moment, Caitlin's mind was still filled with the scene of Bei Yunj breaking out of the water. This was the first time she had seen such a beautiful girl. Stop! A familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. Who told you to grab the cigarettes? The young man was furious. He looked at Bei Yunj in front of him. He didn't expect something like this to happen. They were using this cigarette to tease Caitlin, but someone actually dared to steal it so blatantly? At this very moment, Bei Yunj lazily bit the cigarette butt. After a while his eyes dimmed. There was something wrong with this cigarette. Moments later, she stopped in her tracks and turned around. Her bright and flamboyant eyes were still unruly as she asked leisurely, "What's the matter?" You. Looking at Bei Yunj biting the cigarette, he was speechless. All right, hurry up and leave. The young man could also tell that this person was not someone to be trifled with, so he did not want to complicate matters. However, after that, Bei Yunj's eyes landed on the silent Caitlin. She walked leisurely in front of Caitlin and suddenly laughed. There seemed to be light in her eyes. Caitlin looked up and saw this scene. Bei Yunj shook the cigarette in his hand and said with a smile, "Classmate, a cigarette in exchange for a wish." Chapter 806. Caitlin's butterfly eyelashes trembled as she pursed her pale pink lips. Bei Yunj could see the cold vigilance in her eyes. Her eyes curved and she couldn't help but lean over and joke. "Are you going to leave me alone? Do you want to elope with me?" Suddenly, Caitlin's heart skipped a beat as she looked up at the person in front of her. But before she could regain her senses, someone suddenly grabbed her wrist and ran forward. The people behind immediately reacted. She was taken away. "This guy took her away," someone exclaimed. Instantly, the young man flew into a rage. "MIF * King blind. If you see her, why aren't you chasing after her?" On the huge campus street, the people behind were desperately chasing after her. The people in front, one of them had a smile on her face and an unruly look in her eyes. The other was blushing and almost out of breath. A few minutes later, Caitlin stopped and held her knees with both hands, panting. "I can't take it anymore." Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. At this moment, the people behind were almost catching up. "Hurry up and leave. I'll be fine." Caitlin felt a little pain in her heart, and her expression was a little ugly. However, before Bei Yunj could look, a sharp voice sounded. "Run? Where are you going?" Bei Yunj looked up and saw a group of people coming over aggressively. She laughed casually and walked towards them. She stretched the joints of her arms and said slowly, "You guys are the ones who came looking for me." Hearing that, the young man sneered. Before he could say anything, the unbelievably beautiful and exquisite girl in front of him punched him in the abdomen. Cold sweat broke out on his face and the veins on his forehead bulged. He howled in pain and fell to the ground. This scene made the scalps of the others tingle. "Line up one by one if you want to die. I'm in a hurry to change my clothes." Bei Yunj moved her neck uncomfortably. Her tone was cold and impatient as she slowly wrung the water from the corner of her clothes. This scene aroused the anger of the crowd. The first person to react rushed forward and threw a punch at her. But the next moment, however, the beautiful and thin girl in front of him dodged the attack even faster and grabbed the man's neck with one hand. Then he kicked him in the abdomen with his knee. The young man's face contorted as he clutched his abdomen and knelt in front of Bei Yunj. This scene also dispelled the thoughts of the others in the group battle. This person was too ruthless. "Aren't you going to get lost?" Bei Yunj looked up casually and asked with a faint smile. As soon as he finished speaking, the remaining 4 or 5 people ran away like a swarm of bees. Bei Yunj glanced at the girl next to her. There was something wrong with the cigarette just now. Don't pick it up so casually next time. After that, Bei Yunj was about to leave Neely University. It's half an hour from here to school. The person behind him suddenly spoke. When Bei Yunj turned her head, she heard Caitlin ask with her head lowered. It'll only take 10 minutes to get to my dorm. In the dormitory, the roommates had just returned and pushed open Caitlin's door. They did not expect to see a girl with long, curly black hair. She was bright and beautiful, and was wearing a white shirt. Her aura was impossible to ignore. You are. The roommate was about to stutter. Coincidentally, Caitlin walked out and handed Bei Yunj a clean white towel. This is unused. Thank you. Bei Yunj greeted everyone lazily, and went to dry her hair. Just now, when she met Bei Yunj's eyes, her face inexplicably heated up. She turned around and asked, Caitlin, this is? P.S. Be good and remember the monthly ticket. Chapter 807. If it was another woman who appeared in Caitlin's bedroom, they would not have thought too much. But the girl who had just walked into the bathroom was too ostentatious. She was born with a playful and lazy gaze, but it made one's heart race. Her lethality was too great. She was attractive to both men and women. Appearing in the bedroom in a loose white shirt, it was very easy for one's imagination to run wild. Caitlin reacted. She did not know Bei Yunj's name either. When Bei Yunj came out, she asked, What's your name? When her roommates heard this, their minds were in a mess. They didn't even know her name, and she dared to bring her to the dormitory. What was the relationship between these two? Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj wiped her neck slightly. At this moment, Caitlin turned around and asked, Why are you looking for me? Her roommate reacted and said excitedly, I heard that a big shot came to our school today. It was common for Neely University to see the big shots that everyone was talking about. But there were very few big shots that could make the students so excited. Caitlin looked up. Who is it? The one who was nominated by Busaka and Farizik. Ah, the girl could not help but be excited. I don't know if there will be a speech, but the school is clearing the place today. Unrelated people are not allowed to enter. At this moment, Caitlin turned to look at Bei Yunj suspiciously. How did you get in? She was sure that this was not a student from their school. International exchange student. Bei Yunj responded easily. Before Caitlin could say anything, the person beside her suddenly said, Caitlin, do you want to go to the math department with us? What if you see her in person? They were excited, but they did not notice that the girl beside them glanced at them and continued to wipe her black hair. No, I have to go to class. Caitlin was a student of the chemistry department and had classes in the afternoon. When the others heard this, they were a little disappointed. Which book website at this moment? Caitlin turned and asked, Do you want to go with me? You probably won't be able to leave Neely University before 4:30. This was a tradition of Neely University. Every time a big shot of this level came back, the school would be heavily guarded. Sure. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows and agreed without thinking. On the way, Caitlin and Bei Yunj's figures attracted the attention of many people. When he sat in the classroom, he heard many people talking about it. Why did the school bell bring a girl to class? Family member. What? A girl? Wait, the one next to him is also beautiful. This is the first time I've seen such a beautiful face. They were all curious about the identity of the person beside the campus bell. She was even more eye-catching than the campus bell of Neely University. Go to sleep. Caitlin deliberately found a seat at the back, so that Bei Yunj would not be seen by the professor. Bei Yunj hummed in response and pulled her jacket to cover her head skillfully. Caitlin. His skillful movements made him seem like a veteran. 20 minutes later, when the professor entered, the classroom fell completely silent. Unfortunately, he noticed the unknown object covered by the jacket at a glance. Caitlin, who had always been cold and indifferent, was nervous for the first time. She hesitated for a moment and pushed Bei Yunj beside her. Bei Yunj? Bei Yunj could not sleep well either. She quickly took off her coat and looked lazy with her fluffy hair. When the professor saw Bei Yunj's appearance clearly, his gaze changed and he sneered. Chapter 808. Caitlin suddenly realized that this professor did not like people from country A. In his class, the exchange students in their class were often teased and ostracized. Caitlin frowned without batting an eyelid. At this moment, a young man suddenly walked over. He was panting. "Miss Caitlin, I heard that Knox and the others are looking for you. Are you all right?" "I'm fine," Caitlin said calmly. Only then did the young man realize that there was someone beside Caitlin. She's sitting with me. You can find a seat." After saying that, Caitlin looked at the professor on stage. The young man was silent for a moment. He looked at Bei Yunj again, and finally walked to the back row. "I thought that there wouldn't be people from country A taking my class. I didn't expect me to be so popular." The professor on the stage glanced at the 3 or 4 people from country A below the stage. The 3 people from country A in the middle row clenched their fists and pursed their lips without saying anything. Caitlin turned sideways and said softly, "Professor Bress doesn't like people from country A because his ex-wife ran away with one of them." When Bei Yunj heard this, her lips curled up with interest. "He shouldn't make things difficult for you," Caitlin comforted. Although Professor Bress hated people from country A, he wouldn't have such a conflict with girls. "Okay," Bei Yunj replied casually. Not long after, Professor Bress had already started his lesson. He followed the slides and went through the content as usual. After that, it was time for the group speeches. Caitlin was in the 3rd group. When Caitlin went on stage to prepare for her speech, she heard Professor Bress suddenly ask, "Fei Ku, what contribution did the student next to you make to your group?" Caitlin turned to look at him and said calmly, "She's my friend Professor Bress." Professor Bress glanced at Bei Yunj. After a short silence, he turned his head away. Then, after Caitlin finished her research report, it was the turn of the 3 people from country A. Some students also had the mentality of watching a show. During their speech, Professor Bress interrupted several speeches as usual and asked questions. It made them forget their words nervously, unable to answer, and started to make a fool of themselves. Hearing the laughter around her, Bei Yunj looked up at the PowerPoint presentation on the stage. "Oh my God, are you guys really doing your homework seriously? Oh, I'm sorry. Perhaps I shouldn't blame you for the bad homework this time. I heard that the level of scientific research in your country is still at the level of our country 20 years ago." As soon as Professor Bress said this, most of the students' eyes became more intense, but Caitlin and a small number of students frowned. "You won't be able to keep up with the teaching standards of our school," Professor Bress said. Suddenly, a brown-haired girl's voice fell into everyone's ears. "Professor Bress, I heard that country A will be coming to our school today. Is that true?" Professor Bress's face froze. Without a doubt, the existence of the old school in country R was a slap in the face. They had always believed that country A could not produce top researchers. But for some reason someone popped out. The professors from the computer science and mathematics departments praised him to the skies. The school was also looking for all kinds of connections to poach him into the school. However, he seemed to be very cold to Country R's mathematics circle because of the matter of Country R's Computing Institute. P.S. Be good and remember the monthly ticket. Chapter 809. Professor Bress's expression did not look too good. "I don't know." The professors of the chemistry department had never heard of this news, and they did not know how these students found out. "All right, let's continue with the class." Professor Bress did not want to continue this topic, so he simply diverted everyone's attention. Professor Bress liked to interact in class. After half an hour of speaking, 2 big questions appeared on the slide. "We haven't even talked much in class. Why are they already giving questions?" There were also people complaining below. Caitlin quickly picked up the draft paper and prepared to calculate the questions. She even leaned close to Bei Yunj and asked, "Do you want to try?" Bei Yunj glanced at it and then played with her phone. She rejected politely, "No." Of course, this scene was also very eye-catching in Professor Bress's eyes. He said in a low voice, "If you don't really like this class, I hope you won't walk into the classroom casually in the future." Caitlin was speechless. This tone was very similar to her poor nephew who had been last in the 1st grade. Originally, Professor Bress thought that one of the country our students on stage would complete his question. At that time, he would have another chance to mock the other international student. But what he did not expect was, with that said, Professor Bress pointed to 2 more people to write the questions. This made Professor Bress's face darken. Cullen, are you only focused on talking to your friends in country A and not on your studies? These 2 people stood on stage and neither of them wrote. In fact, the blonde boy next to them even leaned over and asked softly. But in the end, the students could not graduate because they did not have enough grades. As a result, there were very few international exchange students who dared to take Professor Bress's elective class. Professor Bress questioned coldly. In fact, people like Professor Bress had been reported by students before, but because Professor Bress's scientific research results were not small, the school only asked Professor Bress to do a self-reflection and apologize to the students. Professor Bress's tone was sarcastic. There was a dead silence. And these international students were probably automatically assigned to the class because they did not have the chance to attend. If some people really can't do it, then scram back to their country and stop embarrassing themselves outside. Don't let others think that no one in your country has scientific research talent. A voice sounded slowly. Caitlin, did the professor in your school pass the psychological test? Caitlin glanced at the professor. Maybe not. As for the boy who was humiliated on stage, his face turned ugly. You suddenly. Who are you? Professor Bress's face darkened. He pointed at Bei Yunj and sneered. If you are an irrelevant person in this class, you should leave obediently. Hearing that Caitlin dared to accompany her friend and call Professor Bress that way, the surrounding people wanted to applaud her courage. The school bell was really bold. However, unexpectedly, everyone saw the girl suddenly stand up. Her bright and untamed eyes were full of high spirits, but there was no warmth in her eyes. Or do you want to come up and solve the problem? Professor Bress's tone was full of sarcasm and contempt. As soon as he finished speaking, she smiled casually and changed the topic. Since we're already here, how can we not make a scene? You're right, Professor. Caitlin subconsciously looked at Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj, this problem. It's not easy to solve. Before she finished speaking, she saw Bei Yunj take off her headphones, put them into her pocket leisurely and walked up. Everyone subconsciously looked at Bei Yunj. Chapter 8:10. This girl looked young, but did she really know how to solve a problem that no one in the class could solve? Don't get slapped in the face, however. Just as everyone was thinking, Bei Yunj just glanced at the slides and slowly wrote down 2 answers. 77. 36%. Omega NaCl equals 0. 155%. Below the stage. Caitlin's eyes flashed, and she looked at the first question that she was just one step away from solving. After she finished calculating, it happened to be the answer that Bei Yunj wrote on the blackboard. However, when Bei Yunj was sitting next to her just now, she didn't look at the question at all. She was minding her own business. This made Caitlin think that Bei Yunj wasn't a professional. Even a graduate student might not have such speed. Similarly, Braith's face stiffened. He didn't expect Bei Yunj to be able to solve this problem. Moreover, this seemed to be a mental calculation. The people on the stage were confused. The more they listened, the more they couldn't understand Bei Yunj's meaning. Only Caitlin looked at Bei Yunj's eyes dimmed. Professor Braith's face became more and more embarrassed. Also, according to the nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy that the professor just said, the 3-dimensional structure of biomacromolecules in solution. Bei Yunj casually picked up the remote control pen on the podium and slowly flipped to the paragraph that Professor Bress had said at the beginning. She picked out all the subtle flaws in Professor Bress's process and extended other thoughts and knowledge points. From biomacromolecules to recombinant DNA, she could even talk about medical fields perfectly and fluently. Braith even found it very difficult to listen to some of the theories in narrow fields and couldn't keep up with her thinking. This was the first time he had been so ruthlessly criticized in front of all the students. However, the girl in front of him was obviously very young, but her knowledge was even richer than his. Braith's scalp went numb as he listened, let alone the freshman. Bei Yunj broke the chalk in his hand into pieces as if he was playing with it. His gaze was very dark, and the corners of his lips were curled up. Professor Bress, a person can't just be a scientist. He has to grow some brains too. His strength could be said to be terrifying. He had long since surpassed his peers. Until he finished his speech. Their eyes were filled with the words, "Is he starting to cause trouble?" And as expected of a big shot. To be able to snipe Brace until he couldn't speak, this person wasn't just a big shot. This person was a god. In an instant, the students who had been doubting their lives because of that piece of knowledge that made them dizzy suddenly woke up. Professor Bress pointed at Bai Yunj, his face dark and trembling with anger. The other students from Country A also wanted to know which school this person was from in the country. Where did Caitlin find such a god? Too ruthless. This was the first person who dared to talk back to Braith. Scram. Get out of here. Professor Bress flew into a rage out of humiliation. Too strong. However, seeing this scene made her feel so good that her spine went numb. Bai Yunj raised an eyebrow at Caitlin. The corners of her eyes curled up as she slowly walked out of the classroom. Caitlin squeezed the pen in her hand and suppressed the urge to look for Bai Yunj. In the corridor, Bai Yunj picked up Si Qingyan's call. "Master Pei, where did you go?" Si Qingyan's head hurt. Chapter 8:11. I'm here for a lecture. After Bai Yunj finished speaking, Si Qingyan was silent for a long time. Then Si Qingyan probed. "You didn't cause trouble, did you?" Bai Yunj remained silent. Si Qingyan more or less knew what was going on and smiled gently. Mathematics or computing? Or physics? Bai Yunj was silent for a moment. Chemistry? Si Qingyan was speechless. He had almost forgotten about her medical research with Stephen. Why did someone's brain grow like this? Si Qingyan was once again caught in an unsolved mystery of mankind. Then are you still in Neely University? The moment Si Qingyan finished asking, the eyes of the professors in the conference room lit up. They vaguely understood what Si Qingyan meant. I'm going back. Bai Yunj hummed in response. Si Qingyan immediately said, "Yunj, Neely University has already prepared an identity card for you as an exchange student. Can you come to the mathematics department's conference room to get it?" Bai Yunj looked up and saw a landmark not far away. In the Faculty of Science. Without thinking, she said, "Okay." At this moment, the mathematics department professors in the conference room were already excited. They were going to see her in person today. Everyone straightened their sleeves and ties, and focused their attention on the task at hand. Then, another professor could not help asking, "Oh right, how old is she? In her 30s? Si Qingyan said. "Not in her 30s. The professor's body trembled. "Did she just turn 30? Si Qingyan said. "She just turned 19. Instantly, the conference room fell into a dead silence. Zhong Yuanshu, right? At the same time, Bai Yunj had just entered the school when she saw a 7 to 8 meter tall wall of fame. It was daunting. There were 7 photo frames hanging on the wall, 2 of which had portraits and signatures. Only the blank photo frame in the middle had a name written under it. Originally, there were 8 photo frames hanging on the wall of fame, but because she had solved 2 questions in a row, one of them was removed. Before Bai Yunj could leave, she saw a group of students surrounding the wall of fame, carrying out a mysterious ritual. "Gods, please bless me. Please bless me to pass this exam. Please don't fail." Everyone piously bowed to the portrait one by one, looking very organized and disciplined. Bai Yunj's eyelids twitched as he looked at the group of demonic students. Crooked methods. A short while later, just as Bai Yunj was considering whether to call the security guards, she saw several students from a country take out some fruits from their school bags and put them under the portrait. When the students from the other countries saw this, they also had an epiphany and immediately searched for food on their bodies. Chewing gum, oranges, chocolate, lollipops, and even a small bottle of wine were all found and placed under the portrait. The snacks at the bottom of the table were twice as much as the 2 people on the left and right. He had gained a lot. Bai Yunj. True enough. No matter which school it was, there would always be students who would go crazy learning it. The bell rang. All the students scattered like a swarm of bees. Bai Yunj raised her eyebrows and walked slowly to her photo frame. Soon, The door to the conference room was suddenly pushed open. Everyone looked up and saw an excessively beautiful girl walking in with a bunch of snacks and fruits. Which faculty was this freshman from? Before everyone could connect the dots, they suddenly heard Si Qingyan ask, "Ancestor, did you rob someone? Where did you get so many snacks? P.S. Be good, remember the monthly votes. There will be a burst of updates next month. The exact date is not clear yet." Chapter 8:12. They saw Si Qingyan talking to the girl who walked in so familiarly. The professors suddenly had a guess. This unbelievably beautiful girl is. If this was exposed, it would definitely be explosive news. Bei Yunj said slowly, "Someone gave it to me." Si Qingyan raised an eyebrow in disbelief, and took out another piece of chewing gum. How can someone give you chewing gum? Are there so many benefits to being beautiful now? With that said, Si Qingyan looked down and saw that there were cigarettes and lighters in Bei Yunj's pile of things. What nonsense was this? When I came in, I saw a student praying to me in front of the famous person wall, begging not to fail the exam, Bei Yunj said slowly. Si Qingyan instantly understood what was going on with these snacks. Bei Yunj turned around and met the eyes of the professors from the math department of Neely University. A moment later, Bei Yunj gave them some of the things on hand. However, when the professors of Neely University found out about the origin of these snacks, their faces contorted. "This is the exchange student information I prepared for you." Si Qingyan handed a folder to Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj opened it. There were some documents and an identity card inside. However, at this moment, the professors still could not believe that the person in front of them was. This was too unbelievable. After Bei Yunj thanked him, he looked at the other professors. "Is there anything else? If not, yes, we have something else to ask for your opinion." After the professor regained his senses, he immediately said, "Our school would like to specially hire you as a professor in our school." A 19-year-old professor. It sounded very scary. Chinese. However, some people were destined to stand at the peak because of their talent. "But I'm not that satisfied with your school. I'm sorry." There was no emotion in Bei Yunj's eyes. His eyes curved slightly, polite and indifferent. It was rare for Si Qingyan to hear Bei Yunj reject him so directly. A trace of thought flashed past his eyes. After the professors looked at each other, someone asked, "Can I ask why? Your school's teaching style is not in line with your reputation as the top international university." After Bei Yunj finished speaking, she made up a random excuse and left. At this moment, Si Qingyan suddenly said, "Are there any professors in your chemistry department in the afternoon?" As soon as he finished speaking, the professors seemed to have thought of something and their expressions changed. Professor Bress from the chemistry department had a class this afternoon. Professor Bress of the chemistry department had been punished because of discrimination against the country's region, but the punishment was not severe. It was also the school's higher-ups who wanted to protect him. "What's wrong?" a professor asked. Si Qingyan looked at him. "I think I went to the chemistry department for class just now. I didn't seem that happy. The professors didn't look too good." As expected, it was Bress who was delaying matters again. This time, it wasn't easy for him to get her into school. He wouldn't tear apart the students of Country A in front of her, would he? "I'll get someone to ask right away." One of the older professors took a deep breath and said calmly. At this moment, Si Qingyan's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Oh right, we signed a contract with your school back then. I hope you will keep your promise. You can't reveal anything about this. Otherwise, not only will you not participate in any research and development of Neely University's projects in the future, this will also easily cause the friendly relationship between our two countries. Your school also knows what this means to our country." Chapter 8:13. Hearing Si Qingyan's words, the others looked at each other. After that, a professor immediately said, "Professor Si, don't worry. Our country's academic and political circles are very separated. We really hope to have a chance to work with you, and are willing to protect your safety." As the top school in the world, Neely University's foundation was academics, and it would not ruin the school's reputation because of its leader. That's good. Si Qingyan's brows relaxed and he replied gently, "Then I'll have to trouble you. If there's a chance in the future, I hope to cooperate with your school." After Si Qingyan settled Bei Yunji's matter, the mathematics department professor also told the principal about this. The principal's expression did not look too good, and he immediately called Professor Bress over. Professor Bress was called to the principal's office again. He thought that the students from Country A had said something again, and could not help but feel sarcastic. However, when he pushed open the office door, he realized that the principal was looking at him with a terrifying gaze. This was the first time Professor Bress had seen the principal look at someone like this. "Principal, what's the matter?" Professor Bress's tone could not help but soften. But the next moment, the principal threw the teacup on the ground and stood up angrily, ignoring the two mathematics department professors beside him. "What class are you having in the afternoon?" Professor Bress's smile froze. "It's a chemistry class." "What's wrong?" "I was just joking with those children." "Do you have to be so angry, principal? Are you joking? If you're joking, find a place where you can joke. Leave our Neely University." The moment the principal said this, Professor Bress's expression changed. He realized the seriousness of this matter. But he did not do anything to those students. Why was the principal so angry? "Principal, I'm an old professor of Neely University. Are you going to fire me?" Professor Bress was in disbelief. The principal regretted it. If he had fired Bress earlier, he would not have offended him. "What right do you have to be a professor at Neely University? I already warned you last time, but you still dare to discriminate against students." The principal was so angry that he felt dizzy. He gritted his teeth. "I didn't teach you a lesson back then. Get lost now and leave our Neely University." This was the first time the principal asked someone to leave the school. He was obviously angry, but Professor Bress did not understand why the principal was so angry. "And principal, why? Just because I joked with those students in class?" The mathematics professors could not help but close their eyes. "Are you kidding me? How could he make such a joke in front of her?" Luckily, although he was young, he didn't make a big deal out of it. Otherwise, it would be difficult for Bress to survive in the industry in the future. How could it be as simple as being fired by the school? "You'll resign today. Pack your things and leave Neely University." The principal's face was dark, as if he was determined to make Braith leave. After all, how many connections and favors had he used to get her to come to Neely University? But this guy had directly rejected Neely University. He didn't make a move against this guy, because he wanted to save face. 5 o'clock. The students of Country A received an electronic apology letter personally written by the principal, as well as a notice to the entire school announcing the dismissal of Professor Bress. The reason was written clearly. It was also to suppress people like Professor Bress. Chapter 8:14. At the school gate. Before Lilia got into the car, she saw Bei Yunj waiting for someone at the door. Her eyes darkened as she clenched her fists subconsciously and muttered, "Is she really our school's exchange student? How could this be? Miss." It was only when the chauffeur called her that Lilia reacted and got into the car. But along the way, she kept thinking about Bei Yunj's appearance at Neely University. Bei Yunj circled around Neely University for a while before reaching the south gate. Unfortunately, Shangyan had asked Nieyu to pick her up, and the car was parked at the north gate. Hence, he could only go around half of Neely University to pick her up. Soon, a black car stopped in front of her. Nieyu rolled down the window and called out respectfully, "Missy." Unexpectedly, Bei Yunj looked at the cigarette in her hand for a long time and asked lazily, "Assistant Nia, do you want a cigarette?" Nieyu's eyelids twitched. "You're too polite." Bei Yunj got into the car and casually put the cigarette aside. This was the cigarette that the student had placed under her portrait. "Who gave you this cigarette?" Nieyu asked carefully as he drove. Bei Yunj said without thinking, "A student of Neely University." Nieyu was speechless. This student was actually more like a member of society than him. He didn't even have the guts to pass Bei Yunj a cigarette. As he followed Shangyan, Nieyu also knew that Bei Yunj was the heir of the Higgins family. He also roughly knew that Bei Yunj had a close relationship with the Computing Institute. Moreover, if old Mr. Nance had taken a fancy to Bei Yunj, she was definitely not an ordinary person. Miss, are you going to the corporation? Niayu asked. I love ebooks. The elders of the corporation had long wanted to see who the new heir was. After all, they had always thought that Nance was going to save this position for Shangyan. But unexpectedly, this old man turned around and changed it to someone else. No, I want to rest. After Bei Yunj finished speaking, Niayu nodded. Then I'll send you back to rest first. When you came to Neely, old Mr. Nance had already prepared a place for you to stay. Hearing this, Bei Yunj responded faintly and did not think about anything else. But when they were about to arrive, Bei Yunj realized that something was wrong. Wasn't this road leading to the Bayan Manor? Bei Yunj asked. Where do I live? Backton Manor. Niayu raised his mouth and smiled. Neely only has 2 private noble manors. One was Backton Manor, and the other was Bayan Manor. Oh, Bayan Manor, it's right next to Mrs. Manor. The other noble manors were also confiscated and turned into tourist areas. As for the newly built manors and villas, they couldn't compare to Backton and Bayan. Bei Yunj. Yeah. Seeing that Bei Yunj didn't seem to be interested in where to live, Niayu didn't say much. Until they arrived at Backton Manor. Bei Yunj stepped on marble tiles. The domed ceiling was decorated with rose-painted windows. Not far away, there were decorative plaster carvings and classically designed peacock galleries. Even the living room was oak-paneled with art exhibits. This was the attitude of the top rich people in our nation. Miss Pei, I'm the butler here. My name is Sun Xiaoqi. An old man walked up to Bei Yunj and said gently, Old Mr. Nance specially transferred me here. Thank you, Butler Sunday. Bei Yunj nodded and smiled. I want to go to the bedroom first. Miss, you're welcome. Please follow me. Butler Sun looked at Bei Yunj with a noble air in his eyes. He looked like the owner of this manor. P.S. Be good and remember the monthly ticket. Chapter 8:15. After Bei Yunj took a shower and went upstairs to sleep, the butler of the Bayan Manor opposite had just returned from outside and looked at the brightly lit Backton Manor. Strange. The neighbor opposite was actually back? The butler had never known who the neighbor opposite was. All these years he had never seen the lights on opposite, but today it was on for the first time. What are you looking at? Fernans, who was talking to someone not far away, frowned. At this moment, the butler turned around and saw Elena and Lilia opposite Fernans. He was a little surprised, but he quickly smiled and said, Sir, our neighbor seems to be back. The one from the Backton Manor? Fernans was stunned. He had always heard that the manor opposite belonged to the Higgins family, and the head of the Higgins family was Nancy. But Nancy had long disappeared, so who did this manor belong to? Those who could live in the Backton Manor were definitely not inferior to the 4 big families in our nation. Yes, sir. I even bumped into the butler opposite. He seems to be from country, eh? Hearing the butler's words, Fernans was even more curious about the identity of the person opposite him. At this moment, Elena, who had been silent all this while, had a slight change in expression. The smile on her face was a little stiff. The owner of the Backton Manor seems to have always been very mysterious. Lilia subconsciously glanced at Elena. Seeing that she looked a little embarrassed, she did not dare to say anything. The Feway Rose Manor that Elena lived in was built to imitate the Backton Manor. However, because of the unique terrain advantage of the Backton Manor, the effect of the imitation of the Feway Rose Manor was not satisfactory. It was even 1/3 smaller. I forgot to ask, what are you doing here? Fernans asked calmly. At this moment, Elena's expression changed, and she smiled coquettishly. Her hand, which was wearing black lace gloves, elegantly opened the box on the table. She pushed it in front of him. It was a glass bottle the size of a fingernail. There were 3 bottles in total. This is the HIG reagent that I just brought back from our nation's medical institute. I heard that you have been looking for it, so I specially presented it to you. The moment Elena finished speaking, the butler beside her subconsciously looked at Fernans. Some time ago, the most remote branch of the Fernans family went to country or to seek medical treatment in the name of the Fernans family. In the end, because of his bad attitude, he got into a big trouble with the Our Nation's Medical Institute, and was even fractured by the director. As a result, when Fernans went to Countryar's Medical Institute to ask for medicine, he was politely rejected. Some of the older people in the academic circle were stubborn. Even if a knife was placed on their heads, they wouldn't care. Fernans was angry, but there was nothing he could do about the medical institute. He could only go home angrily and look for other connections. However, he did not expect Elena to deliver the reagent to him today. "This is my apology to you as Lilia's aunt." Elena smiled and said, "I hope you can forgive Lilia for speaking carelessly yesterday." Fernans glanced at Elena. Actually, Elena was only 2 years older than Lilia, but she was brave and resourceful. Fernans pursed his lips. "Butler." Hearing this, the butler immediately understood. He brought down a contract from upstairs and gave it to Elena. "Thank you for your gift, Miss Elena. Of course, I can't accept your kindness for nothing. This contract is a return gift." Chapter 8:16. Old Sir has always had a good relationship with my grandfather. If I accept your gift, he won't be happy. A dark look flashed past Elena's eyes as she smiled. These are two different things. After saying that, Fernans looked at her. "Oh right, I also want to know where you got this reagent." After all, our nation's medical institute had never liked to interact with the rich and powerful. It was all their director's bad habit. "My friend is from the International Musicians Association. She has a good relationship with the members of the medical institute and helped me get 3 reagents." A dark look flashed past Elena's eyes and she said, "If there's a chance, I'll introduce you." Fernans did not say anything. Elena knew that this matter was settled. She curled her lips and said casually, "I heard that a lady came to your house yesterday?" Fernans looked at her. "That's right. She should be quite an outstanding girl. Lilia also said that she met her at Neely University today." Hearing Elena say this, Fernans was also surprised. Neely University? That naughty girl from yesterday looked like an indecent student. She could still come to Neely University as an exchange student? Maybe the girl keeps a low profile. She looks like a very capable lady. Elena curled her lips and a strange glint flashed across her eyes. She continued, "Old Sir, if you're free, why don't you go to Neely University tomorrow and get to know this lady better?" With that said, Elena did not disturb him further and left with Lilia. On the way, Lilia could not help asking, "Aunt, but I don't know where that girl is attending classes." "What does it matter? I've already gotten someone to check." After Elena finished speaking, she received a message. She looked down and could not help but laugh. Interesting. She's also in the computer department. Lilia looked up instinctively. She's in the computer department? Under normal circumstances, why would they arrange for someone to be in the computer department? 123 book website. This was Neely University's trump card, and the pressure was also the greatest. Hence, the school's psychological guidance room was mostly filled with computer department students. "Since it's such a coincidence, you have to perform well tomorrow," Elena instructed. Lilia nodded and pursed her lips. "I understand." Although she called Elena her aunt, she was the young miss of a side branch of the Angel family. If Elena thought she was useless, she could disappear into Neely at any time. Also, Elena had been going to the International Musicians Association a lot recently, and had taken a fancy to a talented young pianist. While passing by, Elena glanced at the Bacton Manor with a gloomy gaze before retracting her gaze. The next day, at 9 in the morning, Si Qingyan had already called Bai Yunj several times. "Master Pei, where are you?" As soon as he answered the call, Si Qingyan was about to break down. Bai Yunj wiped her hair and said slowly, "What's the matter?" Si Qingyan, "Do you remember your identity as an exchange student?" Bai Yunj replied, "I remember." Si Qingyan's eyelids twitched. "Then what are you doing now?" "Skipping class." Si Qingyan, question mark. "I'm busy these 2 days. Let's talk about it in a few days." After that, Bai Yunj hung up the phone and prepared to go out. However, not long after Bai Yunj rejected the butler's private car and walked out of the manor, she looked up and saw a familiar car parked beside her. It was Fernans who got out of the car. Chapter 8:17. Suddenly, Pei Yun's eyes met with Fernand's. The atmosphere fell into a subtle chill. Why are you here at this time? Fernand narrowed his eyes and asked suspiciously. Pei Yun also sensed his and the butler's probing gazes. Then, just as she was about to tell the truth, she heard Fernand look at her angrily. Even if you can't keep up with your studies, you can't skip class. Pei Yun took back what she wanted to say. The butler immediately advised, Old sir, Miss is still young and insensible. She's already an adult, yet she's still young? When Fernand thought that the future wife of the family head was like this, he almost blacked out. Both of them were only concerned about Pei Yun, and did not appear at school. However, they forgot to think about why Pei Yun would appear at the entrance of the Backton Manor at this time. Then I'll go to school. With that said, Pei Yun was ready to leave. However, he did not expect to be stopped by Fernand. Wait. Pei Yun turned around and heard Fernand say, I happen to have something to do at Neely University. Let me send you off. Pei Yun. Okay. After getting into the car, Pei Yun sent a message to Xiang Yan. Not long after, everyone at Higgins Corporation received the news that their future boss had stood them up. Some people even guessed that their future boss was deliberately trying to intimidate them. However, in the car, Mr. Fernand's expression did not look too good. Where are you going to class? Pei Yun said without hesitation. The computer science department. As soon as she finished speaking, Fernand and the butler seemed to understand why Pei Yun had skipped class. They did not know what Pei Yun's high school and Neely University were thinking. A third-year student was sent to the computer science department as an exchange student. The computer science department of Neely University was famous for being crazy. It was said that the last place in the computer science department had transferred to another department because of the pressure, but in the end he became the first place in another department. Fernand wondered if it was still possible to turn around and send Pei Yun back. Although he felt that Pei Yun should study hard at this age, he did not want Pei Yun to be tortured by the computer science department. Who chose this major for you? Fernand asked. Pei Yun thought for a moment. I should have chosen it myself. Fernand and the butler. Then he couldn't blame anyone else. Along the way, Fernand wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end, when he got out of the car, he could not help but ask, Are you sure you want to be an exchange student in the computer science department? Yes. Pei Yun had no choice but to take out the rolled-up information sheet from her pocket. After laying it out, she could clearly see the class she was going to attend. He was a third-year computer science student. When Fernand saw it, he froze and was about to fight with the principal of Neely University. Wasn't this too much? Sending a third-year student to the third-year computer science department? Was this something a human would do? Just as Fernand was about to say something to Pei Yun said, Grandpa, I'll go to class first. With that said, Pei Yun left. Old sir, what do you think? The butler, who was at the side, also felt that Neely University was deliberately targeting the exchange students from country A. Let's go and settle the score with that old fool. Fernand's face darkened as he turned around and walked aggressively to the principal's office. P.S. Be good and remember the monthly ticket. Chapter 8:18. On the other side, the professor in class put on his glasses and looked at the name list in his hand. He frowned in confusion. When did an exchange student come to our school? This name list was placed on his table this morning. Pei Yun. The professor shouted at the classroom hall, but no one answered. A dark look flashed across Lilia's eyes. She did not expect that person to be late for no reason on the first day of the exchange students' class. Was she relying on the Fernand's family behind her? Coincidentally, the morning class was late that day. Just as the professor's expression was not too good, and he shouted for the third time, a voice suddenly sounded from the door. Sorry, Professor, I'm late. In the blink of an eye, the crowd saw a beautiful girl. Her eyes were lazy and unruly, causing people to be dazzled. The professor felt that Pei Yun's tone was quite sincere. Because of this face, the professor's expression softened. Why are you late? Pei Yun did not think that she could tell the truth in this situation. After thinking for a long time, she found an excuse. helping an old grandpa cross the road. All of a sudden, the atmosphere was quiet. The professor's expression darkened again. A few girls could not help but burst into laughter as they looked at the girl at the door. This was the first time they had met such a student from country A. She was too daring. As expected, when the professor heard this, he asked Bei Yunj to stand at the door to see if there were any other old grandpas who needed help. Bei Yunj propped her head lazily and glanced at the message Delaney sent her. She threw her phone back into her pocket. Until class ended. Only then did the professor allow Bei Yunj to return to the classroom. At this moment, the students were privately splitting into groups. Have you guys split into groups? After saying that, the girl looked at Bei Yunj again. With the exchange student, there's no shortage of people. With that said, everyone glanced at Bei Yunj and immediately rushed to form a team. Lilia, can I be in the same group as you? Lilia, come with me. Bei Yunj turned around and saw a familiar face. She saw Lilia look up at her and raise her eyebrows at her. She slowly walked to the back seat and found an empty seat. In these 10 minutes, everyone was scrambling to form a team with the outstanding students in the class, fearing that they would encounter a bad teammate. But in the end, there would still be students who were left behind. The remaining 4 students looked at each other, and then at Bei Yunj in the back row. Among the 4 of them, 3 of them were from country A. Because of the language barrier, very few people were willing to team up with them. Yelena, aren't you going to team up with us? The teammate beside Lilia frowned and shouted for Yelena again. Yelena's grades in the class were also ranked second. Why would he be willing to be in the same group as those who were left behind? No need. After Yelena finished speaking, she sat down in front of Bei Yunj and smiled. Hello, I'm Yelena. When Bei Yunj was talking to the professor just now, she had noticed Bei Yunj. She liked Bei Yunj's personality very much. Hello. Bei Yunj curled her lips. I'm Bei Yunj. Can I form a team with you? Yelena did not hide her intention to seduce Bei Yunj. Even Lilia, who was in front, frowned when she heard this. Her relationship with Yelena had always been quite average, but she was clear about Yelena's strength. She did not understand why she would waste her time forming a team with those people. P.S. Our monthly votes are getting fewer and fewer. Good luck, guys. Chapter 8:19. Bei Yunj glanced at Yelena and answered casually. The other 3 looked at each other and immediately asked, Then can we team up with you? Bei Yunj glanced at them. Anything is fine. Hearing this, the 3 of them finally heaved a sigh of relief. But the next moment, they heard a sneer not far away. No way? Do they think they can make a comeback with Yelena? Yelena hasn't come to class for 2 to 3 months. Who knows what the group report will be like this time? Don't talk about it. Didn't they bring along a burden who doesn't know anything? I don't know what kind of background that person has. How can a third-year student become an exchange student of our 3rd year? And other than her, I've never heard of any exchange students in our school. The others started discussing, especially Lilia's team. They were full of pride, and were already determined to get first place. Lilia, how should we arrange the group report this time? Someone asked. Lilia also smiled. There's no hurry. There's still 4 to 5 days. There won't be any problems. The group report this time was actually for the speech in 4 days. 4 days later, the Delaney Group's key project would come to Neely University to pick people to join their project team. Now the Delaney Group was very popular, and had become an employment company that computer science students were scrambling for. However, the Delaney Group had always been strict in choosing people. Even at a top school like Neely University, only a few could enter the Delaney Group. Someone asked carefully, Lilia, do you want to intern at the Delaney Group or Angel Group in the future? Everyone waited for Lilia's answer. Lilia curled her lips. I don't plan to enter either of them. With that, she looked at them. But don't worry, I'm determined to get first place this time. A dark glint flashed across Lilia's eyes. If she returned to Angel Group, she would be monitored by Elena. If she went to the Delaney Group, she would easily offend her family. Fortunately, she had already prepared a third path. Lilia had already found out that the Delaney Group was not the only one who came to their school to recruit people. It was just another organization that could not be made public. However, as long as she was chosen by the people of that place, even the Angel family or the Fernandes family would favor her. Therefore, she had to get first place. Afternoon. Bei Yunj had just returned to the classroom when she saw that the other four had already finished their work. She thought for a moment. Don't you need me to do anything? Yelena also looked at Bei Yunj and thought for a long time. Then, she held Bei Yunj's hand and patted it. Go and get a glass of water for your team member. Bei Yunj. Okay. This was the first time that Bei Yunj had been suppressed. Bei Yunj walked out of the classroom with 4 cups in her arms. Not long after she left, someone suddenly grabbed her by the collar. Where are you going for class? Bei Yunj looked up and saw that it was her professor. My team members are thirsty, professor. The professor looked at Bei Yunj and remembered that Bei Yunj was a third-year high school student. Indeed, he couldn't be of much help with the team's report. He did not know what the school was thinking, throwing a third-year high school student into the computer science department. At the thought of this, the professor's face darkened and he walked towards the principal's office. He cursed. This is too much. It's fine if you let those people from the math department poach our computer science department yesterday. Now you actually threw a third-year high school student into our department. Chapter 820. At this moment, in the principal's office, the atmosphere was tense. What are you doing here? The principal couldn't help but ask. Fernandes was still sitting on the sofa, looking dignified. Worrell, your Neely University is the top school in our nation. Are you so mean to the exchange students? Worrell seemed to have thought of something and immediately retorted. Stop talking nonsense. Our school treats everyone equally. Fernandes chuckled. Treat everyone equally? Treat everyone equally? You don't treat the exchange students as humans? The butler beside him looked down and didn't say a word. What nonsense are you talking about? Principal Worrell had a headache. He didn't know why Fernandes had come to find trouble with him today. You're still not admitting it? Have you ever cared about the life and death of an exchange student here? After Fernandes finished speaking, Principal Worrell thought that he was talking about Professor Bress. He couldn't help but feel guilty. It's not that serious, right? It's not that serious? Fernandes' face darkened. If anything happens to that student, can you bear the responsibility? Worrell was speechless. In the end, his voice weakened. I'll comfort them and give them some rewards. Fernandes' expression improved slightly when he heard that. What reward? Principal Worrell said. A bonus. You think it's over just by paying some money? Fernandes' eyes widened. How could the Fernandes family lack this bit of scholarship? Principal Worrell found Fernandes annoying, but he couldn't show it on his face. He could only ask with a fake smile. Then what do you think we should do? Let's get a postgraduate degree and enter a key laboratory. Fernandes nodded in self-affirmation, feeling very satisfied. Little snail Chinese network. The butler's eyelids twitched when he heard this exorbitant demand. Principal Worrell was speechless. He really dared to say that. No. Principal Worrell rejected with a dark expression. Our school has never had such an example. Really? Fernandes leaned over and asked. Then what if I donate a few more buildings? Principal Worrell said. No. Then I'll fund your school's laboratory? Principal Worrell suddenly paused and fell silent. Is your illegitimate son inside? Or your son's illegitimate son? Headmaster Worrell asked. Fernandes' face darkened. Cut the crap. Principal Worrell smiled and leaned back on the sofa leisurely. Mr. Fernandes, I'm really sorry. Mr. Delaney has already decided to fund our laboratory. If it were any other time, he might have agreed to Fernandes' rude condition. But now he didn't lack investors. As expected. Fernandes' face darkened. Are you kidding me? He suppressed his anger. You don't agree, do you? Do you think your Neely University is the only good school in our nation? Good, very good. When that girl finishes her 3rd year of high school, I'll push resources to whichever school she wants to attend in the future. Hearing this, Headmaster Worrell suddenly sensed that something was wrong. Senior year? Isn't he a freshman? Principal Worrell asked. Fernandes sneered. You're still pretending? My girl is only a senior high school student. And you dare to let her be an exchange student in the computer science department. We don't have any exchanges this semester, Sheng said. Before Principal Worrell could finish speaking, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. Chapter 8:21. Principal Worrell suddenly had a ridiculous thought. The way he looked at Fernand's changed again and again, and the teacup in his hand almost shook. Who are you talking about? Principal Worrell felt that his voice was a little weak. Fernand sneered. Are you still pretending? Are you trying to deny it? Principal Worrell was speechless. He really could not believe that a new scientific researcher could be related to such an unreasonable old man's family. Did he make a mistake? Principal Worrell asked again stubbornly. The girl you're talking about is an exchange student from the third-year computer science department? Seeing that he finally admitted it, Fernand smiled. What else? At this moment, Principal Worrell's expression was distorted. He was extremely jealous. Why was this so? This guy was so rich, yet he could still bring such a scientific research genius home. Did he save the Milky Way in his previous life? Looking at Principal Worrell's distorted expression, Fernand was puzzled. What do you mean by that expression? Don't tell me you have a grudge with my meanie? Principal Worrell listened to Fernand call her his meanie, and was both envious and wanted to punch him. He had never seen anyone who dared to call her meanie. How is that possible? Principal Worrell did not want to say anything more to Fernand. He even felt that Fernand was seriously ill. Did he need to donate a building and fund a laboratory to come to Neely University? If he was willing to come, Neely University could donate a building to the Fernand family. Why do you think that that person needs you to donate to the university upstairs? Principal Worrell was really curious. Fernand thought that Principal Worrell was looking down on Bai Yunj, so he immediately said in a boastful tone, What's wrong with donating a building? Armina's studies are poor, so is it a problem for her to be ordinary? Let's pick the books. Our girl is so good looking. Even if she's a vase, she's the prettiest. The butler's eyelids twitched, and he could not help but look at Fernand again. Didn't he say that the madam of the family could not be like Miss Pei, who only had a face? When Principal Worrell heard this, he did not know what expression to put on. There were probably not many people who could say that she was a vase. Suddenly, a dark look flashed across Principal Worrell's eyes before they suddenly became gentle. Actually, your family's girl can also come to our school. Fernand was surprised. He did not understand why Principal Worrell had suddenly changed his mind. Really? Of course it's true. You don't have to donate the building or fund it. Headmaster Worrell didn't dare to ask for it either. She was afraid that he would settle the score with her. However, when Fernand heard him say this, he immediately narrowed his eyes. Worrell, when have you been so polite to me? Previously, the Fernand family had almost been admitted to Neely University. Fernand's son had spent a lot of money to make up for that point. How could Worrell be so understanding now? Principal Worrell froze. Subsequently, Fernand was shocked and angry. Old thing, don't tell me you've taken a fancy to my granddaughter-in-law? Why don't you take a look at how old you are? Can't you act like a human? Principal Worrell. Hold it in. Cultured people shouldn't make a move. No. Principal Worrell was so angry that he could taste blood in his throat. But soon, Principal Worrell reacted and suddenly stood up. What? Your granddaughter-in-law? Chapter 8:22. The butler beside him looked at Fernand, his emotions indescribable. He did not know who it was that angrily called for a family gathering, and said that the daughter-in-law of the Fernand family could not only have a face. He even said righteously that the Fernand family never did anything like pulling strings. It scared the young masters of the Fernand family so much that they even asked about their lover's education background. But now? Miss Pei did not say anything, and he came over to spend money to buy schools and resources for Miss Pei. He was probably more concerned than Miss Pei's parents. Now he even admitted that she was his granddaughter-in-law. Not my granddaughter-in-law, but your granddaughter-in-law? Fernand asked coldly. Principal Worrell wanted to say something but hesitated. His expression did not look too good. Was the Fernand family burning incense? Why did all the good things happen to their family? Principal Worrell took a deep breath and asked kindly, "Then I wonder, which biological grandson of yours it is?" At the same time, Principal Worrell could not help but be excited. If that was the case, wouldn't he be half our nation? "He's in a nation," Fernan said. Principal Worrell comforted him. "It's okay. Even if he's in a nation, he's still our nation." "No, because of some things he took his mother's surname, and his nationality is a nation." Fernan's eyes darkened. Worrell's expression froze when he heard this. "Why are you so curious about Armeni?" Fernan's looked at him strangely. Principal Worrell coughed softly, and did not dare to say anything. After all, if she wanted Fernan's to know her true identity, she would have said it long ago. It would not be his turn to speak. Besides, he had signed the agreement with a nation. "Fernan's, maybe that classmate isn't as bad as you think." Principal Worrell could only hint at him like this. Fernan's shook his head. "I don't think that girl has a good temper. She's probably a troublemaker." Principal Worrell was speechless. "Can I have such a troublemaker as my granddaughter-in-law?" Headmaster Worrell hated such people who did not know how lucky they were. After Principal Worrell sent Fernan's off, the professor from the computer department slammed the door of the principal's office angrily. Headmaster Worrell hadn't even taken a sip of his tea. "What's the matter?" "Principal, how can you place a third-year exchange student in our class? We're from the third class." Principal Worrell's eyelids twitched. He remembered that this batch of professors had not signed the agreement yet. "It's only for a few days anyway. Just bear with it." After that, Principal Worrell didn't even open the door. He put on his earpiece and turned on the computer to watch the basketball match. The professor outside shouted for a long time, but when he saw that the principal didn't come out, his face changed. This was too irresponsible to the students. This was also the first time he knew that third-year high school students were sent to the third-year university as exchange students. How was this the style of a top university? The professor was angry for a long time, but he could only return to the classroom. Sitting in the car, Fernan's recalled Principal Worrell's vague words to Bei Yunj. It was as if they didn't dare to recruit Bei Yunj into the school after hearing what he said. Fernan's asked the butler in confusion, "So that Mina's studies are so bad that I can't get into Neely University even if I spend money?" The butler smiled gently. "Sir, it might also be because your words just now scared Principal Worrell." Chapter 823. Fernan's frowned. "I'm not agitated." With that said, however, Fernan's was clearly worried. He was worried that the Fernan's family would have such a wife in the future. At the same time, Bei Yunj saw the message from Shangyan. "Shangyan, the people from the technical department said that they want to change your project." Bei Yunj raised an eyebrow and replied quickly. "Shangyan, they haven't gotten off work yet." Bei Yunja's eyes flickered and she looked at Yelena. "You really don't need my help?" Yelena turned to look at Bei Yunj. "You're the face of our team. What can you do for us?" Bei Yunj was silent for a moment. "Then I'll go back first? I still have something to do." "Then you can go back." Yelena was very generous, and the others looked at this third-year high school girl with kind eyes. This was a third-year project report. No matter how inhumane they were, they wouldn't exploit a third-year high school girl. Then from the corner of her eye, Lilia also saw Bei Yunj leaving with her things. "Lilia?" Someone called out to her and followed Lilia's gaze. When they saw Bei Yunj leaving, they couldn't help but sneer. Yelena is so magnanimous. She brought 3 burdens and a third-year high school kid who can't help at all. Lilia also laughed. A dark look flashed across her eyes before she turned her head away disapprovingly. However, just after Bei Yunj agreed to go to Higgins' group, she walked on the campus with her hat pressed down. At the same time, the butler was still comforting Fernan's. "Number 5-inch-old sir, you don't have to think so much. Mr. Ho won't pick the wrong person." The butler continued to smile. "Maybe Miss is also a promising talent." "Stop the car." Before the butler could finish speaking, Fernan's interrupted him. Then, the butler looked up and saw Bei Yunj walking slowly by the roadside. The butler was speechless. Neely University's computer science students wouldn't be loitering around the campus at this time. Then it was confirmed. Miss Pei skipped class twice a day. In the face of this situation, the butler, who had always been full of smiles, could no longer smile. The next moment, the gloomy Fernans opened the door and got out of the car. As it happens, the moment Pei Yunj looked up, she saw an old gentleman in a suit beside her. Pei Yunj obviously didn't expect to be caught by the old man twice in a day. You skip class twice a day? For the first time, Fernans knew what it meant to expect better from someone. In the past, in the family, the younger generation did not dare to cry and make a scene in front of Fernans. It was their parents who strictly restrained them. Therefore, in Fernan's eyes, all the juniors were obedient, sensible, and proactive. This was really the first time in Fernan's life that he had encountered a thorn like Pei Yunj. Pei Yunj paused for a moment, then slowly chewed on the candy. When the butler saw how furious Fernans was, he could not help but lower his head and hide the smile on his face. He suddenly seemed to know why Fernans would not let Pei Yunj go. Everyone was well-behaved, respectful, and obedient in front of Fernans. Only this girl in front of him had an unruly personality, but she was very likable to the elders. And the Fernans family had never had such a junior. The only girl in the family was like a mouse seeing a cat when she saw Fernans. Chapter 8:24. Seeing that Pei Yunj did not speak, Fernans became even angrier. Don't you have anything to say? Pei Yunj looked up and asked seriously. Then do you want to listen to my excuses? Fernans was speechless. The butler was speechless. This train of thought seemed to be right, but there seemed to be something wrong. Until the next moment. Before Fernans could reprimand him, an angry voice suddenly sounded from behind. Pei Yunj? Where are you going? Fernans turned around and saw a middle-aged man wearing glasses. He should be a professor. The professor said angrily. About you helping the old man cross the road this morning. I haven't, suddenly. Pei Yunj's lips curled up. He moved closer to Fernans and held his arm. He said sincerely, Professor, look, I helped the old man this morning. The professor was speechless. Fernans was speechless. Then, under the professor's gaze, Fernans took a deep breath and glared fiercely at Pei Yunj. However, the next moment, he turned around and smiled kindly. Hello, I'm the one who received help from this classmate this morning. Grandpa. The professor was speechless. The butler was speechless. It was almost certain that those people in the family would never have thought that the old master was a parent who doted on the younger generation. If it were any other junior in the Fernans family, who would dare to tug at Fernan's sleeve and ask him to help lie? Miss Pei was also someone with a wild background. Have I seen you somewhere before? The professor felt that this old man, who was helped across the road by Pei Yunj, looked very familiar. I don't think so. After saying that, Fernans smiled even more kindly and patted Pei Yunj's head. Good child, hurry up and go to class with the professor. Don't waste your precious learning time. Pei Yunj was speechless. Soon, Pei Yunj could only follow the professor back. However, the professor felt that something was wrong. 186 Chinese website. The car that the old man got into just now was probably a luxury car worth tens of millions. Did he still need to walk across the road? At this thought, the professor checked the car again. He realized that there was only one car sold in the world. It was bought by the old man from the Fernans family 2 years ago. Who the F***ck could help this old man cross the road? The professor was speechless. No wonder he looked familiar. He wanted to curse. The professor looked at Pei Yunj again. He roughly knew why Pei Yunj was put in this class. After Pei Yunj sent a message to Shang Yan, the people from the Higgins group, they knew that they had been stood up by their boss again. As expected of the boss, he was wild. After class, Pei Yunj was still sitting in her seat, flipping through the book in boredom. Suddenly, Pei Yunj felt the phone in her pocket vibrate. Then she opened it. It was a message to her too. Do you want to call you? Seeing this, Pei Yunj's eyes curved as she replied to him lazily. Class is starting soon. Brother, can you give me 3 minutes? How could the man in Yinqing not know that this little girl was doing it on purpose? He curled his thin lips and chuckled softly. Not long after, Pei Yunj received a message from the man. Pay attention in class. Pei Yunj raised her eyebrows and lazily rested her chin on her hand. She glanced at the chat history between her and Huashidu. This man almost only used online chats as a communication tool. He was a little cold. Only the last time he was drunk. P.S. It's the end of the month. Remember the monthly votes. Chapter 8:25. Yelena came over and flipped through the report. She felt that it looked familiar but also very unfamiliar. This was not just a little change. Almost only their original framework was retained, and a large number of deletions were rewritten in the report. The entire report was filled with precise professional content that involved many fields. Even Yelena could not understand it. Yelena asked subconsciously, "Who was the last to leave?" I think it's Bae-yunj?" Another person hesitated for a moment. But as soon as he finished speaking, everyone fell silent and dismissed this thought. What a joke. They could not even understand this report. How could a third-year high school student write it? Moreover, they had only left for half an hour. The quality of this report would take at least a month to write, right? Just as everyone thought that they had been favored by the goddess of luck, they suddenly realized something else. The report was not just handed in. This was a high-level professional report. No one could explain it on the spot with confidence. Yelena, who was the last to go up and give this report? Someone asked softly. Yelena's eyelids twitched. She felt that she was not worthy of this report. Which god was doing a good deed without leaving his name? I'll give it a try. Yelena took a deep breath and looked at the report with mixed feelings. She was really not confident. 2 to 3 days passed. Lilia's team had also finished their report and could not help but relax. While chatting, Lilia suddenly asked, "How are the preparations for Yelena's team? I don't think I've seen them recently. Who knows what they're up to? I haven't seen them for the past 2 days. Anyway, the group will be showing off this afternoon." Another girl could not help but gloat. "I also want to know what Yelena can do with a few burdens. Ha ha ha, it's a car accident. If I were Yelena, I would be so angry that I would cry. 2 of the worst in the team and a third-year high school girl who doesn't know anything. What kind of trashy teammates are these?" Hearing these words, Lilia's lips curled up. She did not treat Yelena as an opponent, and her fear of Bae-yunj was dispelled. Lilia could not help but laugh at the thought of this. Over the past few days, he had observed Bae-yunj for a long time. Other than her pretty face, there was nothing special about her. However, Hoshidu would get tired of her face sooner or later. However, it was a pity that Hoshidu should have seen such a scene with his own eyes. Until the afternoon, the group presentation that everyone was nervous about was about to begin. According to the order of the draw, Bae-yunj was the last to go up to give a speech. Lilia looked at the number 4 in her hand. It was the third last speech. She laughed in surprise. Then, she glanced at Yelena and the others who had arrived late and were sitting in the last row. Suddenly, Lilia called out to the boy in front of her. "Seni, what's wrong?" Seni turned and asked. "Let's change the order of the draw. I have more content to give." Lilia placed the note for on the table. She wasn't worried that Seni would be unwilling. True enough. Seni was shocked to see Lilia right in front of his team. Everyone knew that Lilia's team was the strongest. If she was right in front of their team, wouldn't their team be cannon fodder? Sure. Thank you, Lilia. Seni immediately took Lilia's note. Chapter 8:26. Lilia held the 5 note in her hand and curled her lips thoughtfully. She inadvertently glanced at Bae-yunj's group. Bae-yunj stretched out her hand casually and gently tugged at Yelena's hair. "Are you done memorizing it?" Yelena almost cursed. Was this something that could be memorized in 2 or 3 days? There was too much obscure professional knowledge in this report. Yelena had to check for an entire day before she could roughly understand the main points of the report. As a result, for the past 2 to 3 days, Yelena had been feeling weak when she saw this report. Looking at Yelena's gaze, Bae-yunj roughly understood. She glanced at the paper report a few more times and did not find anything professional. If this was given to Tich and the others, they would probably be able to give a speech without a script in an hour. "It's okay. This is our 6th speech. Good luck, Yelena." A few students beside her carefully cheered Yelena on. After all, to be honest, they did not contribute to this report at all. They only helped Yelena check some professional information. They might as well have done more than Bei Yunj, who helped Yelena fetch water every day. The corners of Yelena's mouth twitched. She felt that she was already the hope of the entire group, so she could only bite the bullet and continue memorizing. However, not long after, the members of their team could not help but curse. F***ck what? I clearly saw that Lilia's lot was 4. How did it become Seni? Hearing this, the others immediately reacted. These two groups had secretly changed the order. If this behavior was not deliberately targeted at their group, they would not believe it. Yelena frowned and glanced at Lilia, who was chatting and laughing with someone below the stage. The professors who came to listen to the class gave the reports and speeches of the first few groups. They were not very high. U9 ebook according to the content and the score of the speech. The content was 60 points and the speech was 40 points. The other groups only got a little over 70 points. Seni's group got 76 points, which was the highest so far. But not long after Lilia went on stage, everyone could sense that Lilia's choice of topic was very good. It was a different approach. When the professors below the stage saw the report in their hands, they could not help but nod in admiration. In the 20-minute speech, Lilia almost went off script. The professors were not in a hurry to ask questions. She directly got the highest score on the field, 87 points. The pressure on the group at the back had simply skyrocketed. After getting off the stage, there was a smile on Lilia's lips. She even glanced at Yelena and Bei Yunj casually before she slowly sat down in her seat. Below the stage, there was a heated discussion because of the professor's grading. 87 points? This score was too arrogant, wasn't it? The first one starts with 8 points, and it's only 3 minutes away from 90. F***ck. Luckily we're not behind their group. Otherwise, wouldn't our score be crushed to death? This is more than being crushed to death. Don't you know the standard of Yelena's team? I don't think Yelena can write a good report by herself. I hope she doesn't fail. Serves her right. Didn't she choose the group herself? Amid the discussion, Yelena had already grasped the manuscript and walked onto the stage. He handed the printed report to the professors. The professors casually flipped through the pages, but their breathing stagnated and their hands froze. After coming back to his senses, he immediately flipped through the pages carefully, his eyes shining brightly. Subsequently, before Yelena could start her speech, the students in the front row saw from the corner of their eyes that the professors casually waved the pens in their hands. The content evaluation was given a 60, without hesitation. Chapter 8:27. The people in the front row who were pleasing to the eye held their breaths and their smiles froze. However, the person in the back row patted one of them on the shoulder and asked with a smile, "Dan, do you think our team will definitely get first place?" Dan froze. This was the first time he saw the professors of Neely University giving full marks. "I don't know." Dan was stunned. He subconsciously looked at the PowerPoint that he had just opened. Although the PowerPoint presentation wasn't as accurate as the report, it still stunned everyone who had been feeling smug just now. Who wrote this? Yelena had taken so long off because she had returned from her cultivation. This presentation was simply too good. Lilia, look at the PowerPoint. The person beside her had an ugly expression. At this moment, Lilia looked up and saw the PowerPoint. Her calm smile froze. "This is," she said instinctively. At this moment, Yelena took a deep breath and introduced her team and members to everyone before starting her speech. Although it was a little scripted, the difficulty of this report was high to begin with. It was already not easy to not stumble. After it ended, the professors calculated the average score. In the content, only one professor strictly gave 59 points. The average score was still 60 points. Including the speech, they had a total of 92 points. The only team that scored more than 90 points. Seeing this score, the fifth team could no longer laugh. Their faces were slapped. It hurt too much. Impossible. Lilia could not understand. Yelena had brought along 4 burdens alone. How could her standards have improved so much? Her thoughts stopped here. Literature. Lilia subconsciously looked at Bei Yunj, but immediately interrupted her thoughts. Impossible. What did a third-year high school student know? It was not until they were praised by the professors that the sixth team felt that they had won. When the other team saw the results, they also had mixed feelings. They had just mocked the sixth team for being at the bottom, but they did not expect them to be a dark horse. The members of the fifth team looked even worse. However, this was only the school's prediction. Whether they could really win once would have to wait for the official speech tomorrow afternoon. Yelena heaved a sigh of relief and said with a smile, "Let's go and eat something good first." The others immediately agreed. "I have something to do later. You guys go ahead and eat." As usual, Bei Yunj did not participate in group activities. "All right then. Yunj, you must have a meal together tomorrow," Yelena reminded her. "All right." After they left, Bei Yunj also went to pick up a package from Country R's Computing Institute. It was a big deal. Marcus must have known that Bei Yunj had come to Neely University, so he had sent her to Neely University. When Bei Yunj opened it, she saw a brand new silver-white laptop with the logo, HG. It was the logo of Higgins Group, and Bei Yunj was going to pre-sell it in the future. Other than that, there was also a yellow folder. After opening it, it was a share transfer agreement of the Delaney Group. Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched as she called Delaney again. The moment Delaney saw the note, he immediately raised his hand to stop the meeting. Just as everyone fell into a cold atmosphere and did not dare to disturb the boss call, they heard Delaney change his tone and smile ingratiatingly. "Are you busy, Master Pei?" Chapter 828. Bei Yunj's eyebrows moved as her index finger tapped on the computer's casing rhythmically. Her tone was a little impatient. "Didn't I say that I don't need your company's shares? One Higgins Group was enough to deal with." During this period of time, Delaney had called 8 out of 10 times to mention joining the company. Delaney felt that Bei Yunj was a little angry and instinctively glanced at the higher-ups who were looking at him. He immediately stood up and walked out, not forgetting to say hurriedly, "Master Pei, let me explain." The higher-ups who stayed behind were speechless. Was that still their arrogant and cool boss? Which god was talking to their boss on the phone? She could actually make their boss so humble. In the long corridor, Delaney explained softly, "Look, you're already helping Higgins make a product. Aren't we still old friends? How can Higgins care about you as much as I do?" At this point, Delaney felt sour. He didn't even know where Higgins had found Bei Yunj. The entire academic circle in our nation was looking for her, but they had actually found her. Delaney also felt that Bei Yunj was more concerned about Higgins Corporation than their company. He couldn't possibly watch the big boss run to someone else's camp, right? Bei Yunj was speechless. She finally understood. Delaney was competing with Higgins. "I helped Higgins because Higgins is mine." Bei Yunj's tone was calm, and she did not intend to hide it from Delaney. When Delaney heard this, his body froze. After a while, he suddenly regained his senses. "Why, you're the future heir of Higgins Corporation." Bei Yunj replied. Delaney was speechless. Good fellow. The higher-ups of Higgins were actually spreading rumors outside that the new heir was Nancy's illegitimate daughter, and that she was a good-for-nothing who knew nothing. Who the F***ck dared to treat her as a good-for-nothing? Delaney could already predict how Bei Yunj would deal with those troublemakers. He could not help but tremble. Then, Delaney made up his mind. "Yunj, just sign this agreement. This will only benefit you. Moreover, Higgins had been abandoned for so long. What kind of people were there in there? I can help you. I also hope that Delaney Group and Higgins Group can always maintain friendly cooperation." Bei Yunj's thin eyelids twitched, but she didn't say anything. Actually, she knew that Delaney had helped her a lot. "Soon," she said. "You've given me too many shares. Change it and send a copy to my email." Hearing this, Delaney felt that happiness had come too suddenly. He was so excited that he could not speak. All right, I'll get someone to draft the agreement right away." Very soon, the interior of the Delaney Group was in an uproar because of the mysterious partner. At this time, Bei Yunj had already returned to the classroom with her laptop. He saw that the other teams were still working overtime to edit the content of the report. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. She quickly withdrew her gaze and left the professor. When the members of Group 5 saw Beiyang, their faces became even more distorted. They actually lost to such a person. What's so great about that? Why is that person so arrogant? After Beiyang left, someone immediately said unhappily. Another person was also indignant. That's right. If it wasn't for Yelena, this group would have been doomed, alright? Lilia's expression darkened. At this moment, the others finally realized that these words had agitated Lilia. Chapter 829. Lilia, that's not what we meant. Then what do you mean? Lilia asked in return, leaving everyone speechless. Lilia pursed her lips. Continue to change it. Such content was like trash in front of Yelena's team. I don't believe that they wrote that report themselves. Someone said angrily. But we can't prove that they didn't write that report. They were indignant, but they did not notice that a dark look flashed past Lilia's eyes. The next day, everyone came to the classroom early to prepare. Yelena also increased her practice and was sure that there would not be any problems. She moved closer to Beiyang and said in surprise, Yang, how much is your computer? It looks pretty good. The texture and craftsmanship are top-notch. Someone gave it to me, Beiyang said casually. If you like it, I'll get them to give it to you in the future. That's not good, right? I'll give you the money. The eyelids of the other team members twitched. It was their first time seeing someone want to buy a computer just because it was good-looking. Buy it and put it at home? Beiyang had always had no concept of living expenses. For example, the last time she recorded a variety show, she bought a watermelon for 100 yuan. She thought of a cheap price and asked tentatively, 10,000 yuan? With that said, everyone else's bodies trembled. They did not understand how this lousy computer was really worth 10,000 yuan. But then Yelena was pleasantly surprised. So cheap? The team members were speechless. They really did not understand the concept of money of rich people. Just transfer some money. They don't lack money, Beiyang said slowly. In fact, good internet. The Our Nation's Computing Institute's conservative valuation of this computer was 200,000 to 300,000 yuan per unit. The design concept and various advantages were too far beyond the current technology level. It was to the extent that the manufacturers they were talking to were shocked and suspicious. Was technology so advanced now? However, after finding out what the product design was, they dispelled their worries and even bet that this product would become popular in the rich circle. This was the core model. Of course, there were also ordinary models, but the cheaper ones were more than 20,000 yuan. After Yelena transferred the money, the more she looked at Beiyang's computer, the more she felt that Beiyang was really good to her. The others gradually realized that they really didn't understand the world of the rich. For the entire morning, the other groups were rushing to finish the content. Only the sixth group was chatting, which made the other groups jealous. Team 5's face darkened. This group of people was really too arrogant. Noon. Beiyang and Yelena went out for dinner together. One of the members called and said that he had something to do in the afternoon, and could not be there. Then the USB flash drive you left with me. The man hesitated. The key was that he had changed some of the content yesterday to make it easier for Yelena to give her speech. Beiyang said calmly, put it on my computer. Alright, sorry to trouble you. The boy heaved a sigh of relief. It's okay. You do what you need to do. Beiyang didn't care too much and went to line up with Yelena to get the milk tea. But after the meal, as soon as Beiyang and Yelena returned, they felt that the atmosphere was not right. Everyone around them was looking at them. Team 5 looked like they were gloating, as if they were watching a good show. Beiyang, did you ask Li Jun to leave the USB flash drive with you? Beiyang nodded and glanced at his table. Yes. Then you took the USB flash drive? The team member asked anxiously. Beiyang's gaze turned cold. No. Chapter 830. Where did you get the time to get it? Yang and I answered the call together. We're in the canteen. Yelena frowned and said, don't tell me you lost the USB flash drive? The others remained silent. The atmosphere fell silent. The other teams pretended not to see anything. Only Team 5 was gloating. Bei Yunj did not say anything and only walked to his table. He looked around and did not see the USB flash drive. Then, Yelena called Li Jun and confirmed that Li Jun had left the USB flash drive on Bei Yunj's computer before he left. Who was using the classroom at noon? Bei Yunj rubbed his fingers against the computer and asked carelessly. I think there's only Team 1 and Team 5, someone said. Then, Team 1 immediately said. Our team went to the classroom next door after that. Besides, only 2 people from our team stayed behind. I guarantee it wasn't us. Everyone looked at Team 5. At this moment, the members of Team 5 sneered. Who's to blame for not taking good care of their own things? That's right. They can only blame themselves for not keeping a low profile. They've been smug for so long. Now they don't even have a PowerPoint. Everyone knew the importance of a PowerPoint, especially someone like Yelena, who needed to rely on a PowerPoint. Without a PowerPoint, the entire segment would collapse. Yelena's expression was ugly. The member behind her also said softly, Team 5 has been in our classroom from the beginning to the end. Yelena said in a low voice, Do you know that this is theft? How can we sue you? What has it got to do with us? You lost your own things and you're still pushing the blame? Someone from Team 5 immediately stood up and said mockingly, Do you have evidence that someone from our team took it? Actually, there were times when Team 5 left, but they were not so kind as to tell Team 6. What should we do? It's almost time for the speech. Can the PowerPoint be redone? Someone asked anxiously. Mandarin Chinese, the materials are all with Li Jun. It definitely won't work, another member said. Tisk, if that report was really done by you, why don't you go off script? What's so difficult about it? The girl beside her laughed, but her tone was full of ridicule. That's right. Your report came from an unknown source. No one reported it. Do you think that it's so easy to get first place? Just get someone to do a PowerPoint presentation for you? A dark look flashed across Lilia's eyes. She curled her lips and did not say anything. Suddenly, a clear and cold voice rang out. Is no one going to admit it? No one responded to his words. Her beautiful eyes curled up and her lips curled into a playful smile, but it was filled with hostility. It's pretty good. Now that you're so tight-lipped, I hope that when we find out who you are, you'll cut the crap. Everyone raised their heads to look at the girl, but they were intimidated by the coldness in her eyes. His scalp went numb subconsciously. The people in Group 5 suddenly felt a little uneasy and looked at Wendy and Lilia. In their group, Wendy and Lilia were the last to leave. Actually, they were also wondering if it was done by someone from their own team. However, this matter itself was difficult to investigate. What's more, the surveillance cameras in the corridor were broken some time ago. Therefore, they didn't want to say anything. How much longer? Bei Yunj asked. Yelena's palms were sweating. 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, he began his speech. Everyone had to be there. Bei Yunj's beautiful eyes darkened, and she licked her red lips. My turn. Yelena didn't think that she could control this report at all. However, she didn't want to embarrass Bei Yunj. Chapter 831. Yunj, are you confident? Yelena wanted to say something but hesitated. She changed her words to the one that would hurt Bei Yunj the least. However, Bei Yunj replied lazily, I'm all right. Yelena was speechless. The other team members were speechless. They also wanted to have Bei Yunj's calm king's mentality. Yunj, you'd better. Before Yelena could finish speaking, Bei Yunj stuffed a small cake into her mouth. Then, she lazily placed the other books on the computer and fell asleep on her stomach. She was not afraid of crushing the computer at all. She even pulled up her hood to block the sun. Yelena was speechless. It was good that she slept. When Bei Yunj fell asleep, she would secretly go up and talk. When the others saw Yelena's group hurriedly preparing another PowerPoint presentation, they could not help but have sarcasm in their eyes. How could they prepare it now? Did they think they were dead? Soon, the professors brought along 2 men in their 30s like stars surrounding the moon. It was easy to imagine their identities. There were also people who were puzzled. Wasn't there only one executive from the Delaney group? What about the other one? Only Lilia stared straight at the other invigilator. She was determined to make the invigilator remember her. This time the order was reissued. Unfortunately, Yelena drew the 5th group, and Lilia drew the 6th group. This made Lilia raise an eyebrow with a smile on her face. Wasn't it perfect that there was such a lousy person in front of her to set her off? After the speech started, although they were all students from the top universities, they were still a little nervous in front of these people. After the first speech, neither of them spoke and waited for the next one with an indifferent expression. It was obvious that these people were of no value to them. This made the later groups even more nervous. Happy. After 4 consecutive speeches, the senior executive of the Delaney group, Sheng Yuanqiu, could not help rubbing the space between his eyebrows. Were the students of Neely University only at this level now? But would that ancestor even take a fancy to him? Beside him, Duan Chuang was also wondering if he should look at other schools. However, just as their thoughts were running wild, Yelena was about to go on stage when Bei Yunj suddenly woke up. Is it my turn? Yelena. Why did he wake up at this time? Yunj, listen to me. I'm not listening. Bei Yunj stood up. Seeing that Yelena was not done, she reached out and gently pinched her cheeks. Her beautiful lips pouted, and her words could not be heard clearly. Yelena. At this very moment, seeing that it was Bei Yunj who stood up, the other teams couldn't help but laugh. This made the other two a little uneasy. Could it be that this one was even worse? At this moment, Professor, what should we do if their PowerPoint slides are lost? Wendy asked with a gloating smile. His voice wasn't loud, but the 2 people in front of him heard it. Sheng Yuanqiu's face darkened. He threw the documents into the trash can. How could he lose his PowerPoint presentation? How could he let him do his research without worry? This made Bei Yunj glance at her carelessly. When Wendy met her eyes, she felt inexplicably guilty and quickly looked away. Seeing that she could not pull Bei Yunj down, Yelena was about to give Bei Yunj the simplified PowerPoint presentation that she had not finished. However, in the next second, Bei Yunj took her laptop and went on stage. Sorry, I don't need a PowerPoint presentation. Bei Yunj placed the laptop on the podium lazily and connected it to the projector. P.S. You're first in the monthly votes. Why are you so amazing today? Rub them and kiss them one by one. I'll go prepare to update. Guard the rankings obediently and send Master Pay up. Chapter 832. But if you need it, it's fine too. After Bei Yunj's computer was turned on, she slowly picked up the pen. Little Y office mode. Soon, the people present heard a mechanical voice. It was the sound of the laptop. Roger that, Master. Please select the function attribute. Bei Yunj did not even raise her eyes. Speech and explanation. Yes, Master. Office mode, speech and explanation mode has been activated. Then, Bei Yunj had just raised her face when Sheng Yuanqiu met her eyes. The pen in his hand shook and fell. Why was she here? Sheng Yuanqiu was one of the few higher-ups who knew that Bei Yunj was a partner out of nowhere. However, at this moment when he met Bei Yunj here, his entire body froze. When he came back to his senses, Sheng Yuanqiu felt the new boss's gaze sweeping over. The back of his head felt cold. When he thought of what he had just done, he immediately walked to the trash can and began to rummage through it without caring about his image. This scene shocked the professors and students. What was going on with this big shot? Why did he start rummaging through the trash can? The assistant next to him could not stand it anymore. President Sheng, let me help you. No need. Sheng Yuanqiu immediately snatched the trash can and rummaged through it seriously. The assistant was speechless. What kind of special hobby was this? After finding the piece of paper, Sheng Yuanqiu carefully held it again. He glanced at Bei Yunj and returned to his seat. This also made Duan Chuang look at Sheng Yuanqiu with a strange expression. Bei Yunj glanced at the people present casually and said unhurriedly, "Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bei Yunj, the speaker for this year's speech. My team member is Yelena." Hearing that, there was a burst of laughter from the audience. But a few minutes after Bei Yunj's speech, Wuxia Chinese everyone's expressions, which were originally there to watch the show, gradually froze. Yelena and the others felt that something was wrong. Why did it feel like she was explaining the original report? In fact, the technical terms were even more incomprehensible. Back then, because it was too deep, Yelena and the others had edited the original report. However, Bei Yunji's speech this time not only explained the original report, but also expanded into different fields. The scene made everyone's scalp go numb, however, although it was difficult to understand. As long as Bei Yunji mentioned a certain key point, the projection interface behind her would automatically push the key point to the explanation. There was also the occasional case analysis below. This was a fully automated slideshow. Yelena was stunned for a long time before she muttered, "How can a 10,000 yuan computer be of such standard?" The other team members were also shocked by Bei Yunji's inferior computer. They were speechless. 10,000 yuan was indeed a friendly price. Oh no, this was the price of a father. After a while, the students began to feel dizzy and disoriented. The smiles of the professors in front of them also gradually stiffened, as if they knew the identity of the person in front of them. Coincidentally, they had just signed a confidentiality agreement yesterday, and today, they saw this venerable one. Was he really 19 years old? Sheng Yuanqiu couldn't understand what Bei Yunji was talking about at all, but he didn't dare to ask Bei Yunji to stop. He pretended to listen attentively. Beside them, Duan Chuang wanted to shout for them to stop, but seeing that Sheng Yuanqiu seemed to understand, he could only hold it in. The lecture was coming to an end. Bei Yunji paused for a moment. This made Sheng Yuanqiu think that it was over and almost applauded enthusiastically. But immediately after, Bei Yunji curled his lower lip and lazily connected the other end of the content. The more the professors and students listened to this content, the more familiar it sounded. However, the people in Lilia's team instantly turned pale. P.S. Second update. Chapter 833. Was Bei Yunji repeating Lilia's speech from yesterday? At this moment, Lilia felt a chill seep into her bones. The calm expression on her face had long frozen. Her spine started to turn cold. Bei Yunji's repeated speech was exactly the same as her previous speech. Lilia's team members couldn't take it anymore. They stood up abruptly and reprimanded loudly with ugly expressions. Bei Yunji, how can you do this? You're plagiarizing our team's report. Bei Yunji raised his eyebrows and said lazily, "Didn't your team copy our team's report too?" As soon as he finished speaking, the entire classroom fell silent. Indeed, when Yelena's report was released yesterday, the entire class had more or less modified it according to Yelena's team's report. Coincidentally, Bei Yunji had just left the classroom when he heard Lilia's team reading their team's report. Lilia's expression instantly turned ugly. She bit her lip and hesitated. "You can't. Bei Yunji, you did it on purpose. What does it have to do with us that your team lost their PowerPoint? If you suspect us, show us the evidence." At this moment, the professors in the front row looked embarrassed. They used their eyes to hint at them not to ignore the occasion, but at this moment, no one paid attention to him. On the other hand, Sheng Yuanqiu looked at Lilia's team in surprise. There was no warmth in his eyes. He really didn't expect that someone would dare to pick a fight in front of him. Sheng Yuanqiu smiled and pulled back the professor who wanted to stop the fight. He wasn't afraid of blowing things up at all. If a student has a misunderstanding, just say it on the spot. This matter of stealing someone else's PowerPoint is too immoral. Our Delaney group doesn't dare to accept such a person. As soon as he finished speaking, the people in Lilia's team panicked instantly. They immediately exchanged glances and decided not to admit it. They didn't want to miss such a good opportunity. Hence, 67 Wendy said sharply, "Bei Yunji, who do you think you are? You're deliberately targeting our team without any evidence. If you don't give our team an explanation today, I'll go and find the vice principal," she said proudly. "Not only you, but also your team members' results will be invalidated." Bei Yunji licked her canine teeth and sneered lazily. "What if I find evidence?" Without waiting for them to react, Bei Yunji said gently with a smile, "Is the whole group withdrawing from school?" As soon as he finished speaking, the professors felt a chill run down their spines. They wanted to stop the students who were shouting at Bei Yunji. Who the hell was this? Yes, if she couldn't produce evidence, would she be able to stand on the stage and provoke her so calmly? However, The next second, Wendy sneered and said confidently, "If you find out who took it, then make the culprit drop out of school. What's wrong with that?" Lilia's entire team seemed to have suffered a great grievance and clamored to cancel Bei Yunji's team's results. As long as Bei Yunji's results were cancelled, their team still had a chance to win first place. However, Bei Yunji casually took in everyone's expressions. She turned her head and rubbed the silver laptop in her hand. The corners of her lips curled up. "Little G, I need a surveillance video of this afternoon. It's related to the non-recognizable faces." Soon, another mechanical voice that was different from the one just now sounded. It was a younger female voice. "Master, please wait a moment. The system is investigating." A few seconds later, the soft female voice sounded again. "Master, Little G has already intercepted unfamiliar faces for you. There are a total of 3 people. Do you want to enter the short video to check?" Chapter 834. As soon as he finished speaking, the hearts of the people in Lilia's team trembled. Their bodies stiffened as they stared fixedly at the brand new computer in Bei Yunji's hands. How was this possible? Which brand of computer would have such a device? The others did not know where this black technology came from. It could even be said that it was science fiction. Thus, everyone stared unblinkingly at Bei Yunji's computer. At this moment, Sheng Yuanqiu seemed to understand why Delaney was willing to give up his shares and pull Bei Yunji to his side. He was probably going to dominate the entire field of artificial intelligence. Sheng Yuanqiu felt a chill run down the back of his head. He felt that this new boss was more and more terrifying. Bei Yunji raised his eyebrows and casually glanced at the nervous faces of Lilia's team. His cold and dark eyes were filled with interest. "Look." His tone was slow and intimidating. "Look at those reckless people." As soon as he finished speaking, in the background of the projection, 3 faces appeared on the cover video. The texture was so clear that it was hard not to admit it. The first was Li Jun from Bei Yunji's team. The second was Wendy. The third was the boy from Lilia's team who had shouted the most. Instantly, the members of Lilia's team turned pale, and their pupils constricted. The second one. Bei Yunji opened his mouth and the second video opened. Immediately, Wendy's voice was sharp and she shouted without any care for her image, "Turn it off! Turn it off!" However, the projected video kept playing. The computer had long been in the testing stage and had been identified several times. It only accepted Bei Yunji's instructions. 51 aesthetic soon. Everyone heard Wendy's voice. "Are we really going to do this?" The next moment, a voice that did not appear was also recorded. It seemed to be chatting. "Forget it. First place is not that important to me. On the other hand, you will be ordered to leave Neely, right?" Everyone recognized this voice. It was Lilia. From the angle of the table looking up at Wendy, one could clearly see her twisted face when she was jealous. "Why can that bunch of trash get first place? We don't even know if their report is theirs." Lilia's voice was laughing. "Indeed, but there's nothing we can do about it." "Who says there's no way? Their USB drive is here. Isn't that an opportunity given to us by God?" After that, Wendy directly took the USB flash drive. Lilia, who was beside her, seemed to be persuading her, but every word she said was retreating in order to advance. He asked Wendy to go outside the school and destroy the USB flash drive. After the short video was played, the way everyone looked at Wendy changed. Even the way they looked at Lilia was thought-provoking. She really did not expect that someone would destroy other people's things, and even think that there was no evidence. She was so self-righteous that she wanted to erase Bei Yunji's results. Bei Yunji remained expressionless. Next one. Very soon, another video entered. It was a boy from Lilia's group. After he saw Wendy leave, he walked over to Bei Yunji's computer. He sensed that Wendy had taken something, but he didn't say anything. In fact, he was the one who had shouted the loudest just now. Bei Yunji rubbed the 4 corners of the silver-white computer. It looked like a decorative design. But in fact, it was embedded with the most advanced pinhole miniature camera from Country R's Computing Institute. There were a total of 27 of them. Bei Yunji had specially gotten someone to modify them. The cost of each pinhole miniature camera was about a few million yuan. In order to make the most perfect angles, more than 10 of them had been destroyed. Even Marcus felt the pinch and felt that Bei Yunj was a prodigal. Of course, such equipment would not be available for sale at that time. P.S. There are still 2 more updates. Be obedient and hold on to Master Pei's monthly votes list. The free chapters are in the monthly votes lottery again. Obedient people can go back to the lottery. Chapter 835. Actually, very few people would be so bored as to install pinhole cameras on their computers. Unfortunately, Bei Yunj was one of the few. In her previous life, when she first joined the company, her computer was often touched by others. Bei Yunj felt that it was not clean enough, so she asked the Research Institute to install more than 10 pinhole cameras. And a few months ago, they could always catch a few people who stole business secrets. After that, no one dared to touch Bei Yunj's computer anymore. Drop out? Bei Yunj's voice ruthlessly hit their hearts. Lilia and the others stiffened, but their legs were weak. And Yelena felt that Bei Yunj was a hidden god. The technology level of this computer could be directly borrowed from a sci-fi film crew. 10,000 yuan could buy this computer, right? The other members of Bei Yunj's group started to envy Yelena. When Bei Yunj came on the first day, only Yelena was close to Bei Yunj. She had bet on the right thing. Lilia did not say anything, but no one noticed that she had just sent a text message to someone else. You. Wendy bit her lip and refused to admit her mistake. I only took your USB drive. Do you have to be so calculative? Bei Yunj did not say anything, but someone beside her said, You also know that you took someone else's USB drive? What kind of dog is this? Do you think someone owes you? These words made Wendy's face turn green and red. She glared at the girl again. Bei Yunj, actually this is not a big deal. What do you want? As long as you don't make Wendy drop out of school, I'll try my best to satisfy you. Lilia suddenly smiled. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows playfully. What if I want you to drop out of school? Instantly, the smile on Lilia's face froze. She did not expect Bei Yunj to be so ungrateful. Guangxi. However, in the next moment, someone ran in from the door panting. Lilia, and the exchange students who just arrived, please follow me to the vice principal's office. Hearing this, the other professors' expressions changed. When did the vice principal come back? The professors wanted to stop Bei Yunj, but they couldn't show it in front of the students. In the end, they could only push a professor out and quickly call Principal Worrell. The vice principal probably didn't know who this exchange student was. If he said something wrong, wouldn't all the connections they had built up all this time be for nothing? Seeing this, Sheng Yuanqiu didn't dare to act rashly. After all, Bei Yunj didn't even look at him from the beginning to the end. But he couldn't help but feel anxious. The Bei Yunj to be called Bei Yunj to be called to Bei Yunj. Then Bei Yunj must have offended the angel family this time. Yunj to Bei Yunj to be called 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 Bei Yunj of Bei the of Bei to be called to be called to Bei to be to the to be called to be called to be called to TSK. When Lilia went out just now, she looked so happy. In the corridor, Lilia looked at Bei Yunj and suppressed the jealousy in her eyes. She said word by word, Miss Pei, you probably don't know that I'm the second daughter of the angel family, right? You think you're smart and want to be in the limelight, but you're actually courting death. Miss Angel. Bei Yunj spoke slowly. When Lilia turned her head, she sneered softly and said in a casual and unruly tone, Before you say anything, you should think carefully. Who do you think you are? As soon as she finished speaking, Lilia's face was ashen and gradually distorted. Chapter 836. At the vice principal's office. The moment Bei Yunj and Lilia entered, the vice principal walked up to Lilia enthusiastically. Lilia, have you lost weight recently? Sit down and talk. Lilia sat on the sofa and looked towards Bei Yunj. She realized that she was already sitting on a rattan chair. The vice principal's expression did not look good. Vice principal, let's solve the problem. Lilia told him about the feud between Bei Yunj and her team, avoiding the important points and dwelling on the trivial ones. It only made people think that Bei Yunj was deliberately using her report to embarrass her in public. Lilia smiled and said, "This matter has a huge impact on my team. Vice Principal, you know what the annual recruitment season means to us." The vice principal's face darkened, and he did not look Bei Yunj in the eye. "Lilia, don't worry. When Mr. Angel comes, he will definitely give you a satisfactory answer." With that, he turned around and said coldly, "Student Pei, right? I wonder if your guardian can be present now? Or any elder will do." Bei Yunj said slowly, "No." The vice principal's face darkened even more as he mocked, "Student Pei, do you think it's so easy to resolve something like this today?" Bei Yunj's eyes moved. After thinking for a moment, she chose one from the list on her phone. Soon, under the floor-to-ceiling window, Delaney, who was drinking with his legs crossed, suddenly felt his phone vibrate. He turned to look at the caller ID and shuddered. God of Fortune. Delaney immediately picked it up. "Master Pei, what's the matter?" Bei Yunj was silent for a moment. "There's something. Neely University wants to invite my parents. But my parents aren't in our nation." Delaney's body trembled. He did not expect Neely University to be so arrogant. Invited parents? How were they going to send them back? After reacting, Delaney was inexplicably excited. So he had a chance to be a fake parent. Rounding up, it would be his daughter later. There was such a good thing. Delaney put on his suit jacket and picked up his most expensive and flashy car keys. He smiled kindly. "I understand. Everyone needs an amiable parent. Aren't I here now? Yunj, don't be anxious." Bei Yunj could sense his anticipation. He felt that something was wrong. After hanging up, Delaney had just gotten into his luxury car that was worth nearly 100 million yuan when Tich called. "What? I'm very busy." Delaney's tone was perfunctory. "Tich, Dad, today is my award ceremony. Didn't you say? Tich, you've grown up. It's not easy for us as parents. Don't make trouble for your father, okay?" Delaney sped all the way and hung up the phone after saying that perfunctorily. Tich. At this time, on the sofa of the vice principal's office, a shrewd old man sat calmly. "I'm sorry to trouble you to come here, Mr. Angel." The vice principal's attitude was flattering. "It's just that this matter has indeed caused a lot of harm to student Lilia." Angel turned around and saw Bei Yunj. He couldn't help but frown. Why was it her? Seeing that it was Bei Yunj, Angel hesitated. After all, it would be troublesome if he offended Fernans. However, Lilia suddenly said, "Grandpa, because of something this time, Miss Pei wants me and my friend to drop out of school." Seeing this, the vice principal immediately spoke up for Lilia and exaggerated Bei Yunj's evil deeds. This made Angel's expression darken as he asked in a low and dignified voice, "Miss Pei, you want my granddaughter to drop out of school? P.S. 500 monthly votes have been delivered. The monthly votes will continue to increase by 1,000. Thank you, children, for helping Master Pei surpass the rankings. First place on the monthly votes list, a new high. Let's guard the monthly votes list and send Master Pei up." Chapter 837. Angel's gaze was cold and carried the pressure of a superior. However, Bei Yunj still looked at him unhurriedly and asked, "Could it be that she's my granddaughter?" In an instant, the atmosphere became even colder. Angel's face darkened. This was the first time he had met such a daring little girl. Did she really think that she could be unbridled just because the Fernans family had taken a liking to her? "When will the parents she called come?" Angel asked in a deep voice. "Half an hour." After the vice principal finished speaking, he said indignantly, "Old sir, don't be angry. I'm already preparing to contact Hengda High School in Yincheng and ask her school to expel her." Bei Yunj raised her eyelids and glanced at him. Then she chuckled softly. "What are you laughing at?" Angel asked with a dark face. "Nothing. I just feel that at your age, you've reached out quite far." Bei Yunj's slow words instantly made the vice principal and Angel's faces darken. Anger was about to erupt from their chests. What did she mean by that? Was she cursing them to die early? Bei Yunj. Lilia's expression changed as well. This was the first time she had met someone who dared to speak to her grandfather like that. Good. Very good. Angel slammed the cup on the table. Then, he asked with a dark expression, who are her parents? When the vice principal heard this, he whispered to Angel in a fawning manner, no matter how powerful they are, can they be more powerful than you? A dark look flashed across Lilia's eyes as she reminded him softly, Grandpa, the Bayan Manor is only 10 minutes away. Obviously, the person Bai Yunj was looking for was not Fernand's. Angel's brows relaxed. Then he had nothing to worry about. He took a deep breath and picked up his teacup again. His tone was filled with a hint of arrogance and sarcasm. All right, since she's insensible, then let's wait for her parents to come and let them teach her how to be sensible. Not long after, the vice principal sent an email to Hongda High School right in front of Bai Yunj, requesting that Bai Yunj withdraw from the school. However, when he turned around, he found that the man was still playing with his phone fearlessly. His attitude was particularly arrogant. When are your parents coming? The vice principal asked coldly. The students are not sensible, and the parents don't have a sense of time. Angel sneered. But don't worry, student Pei. I'll wait for your parents to arrive. Angel thought that Bai Yunj's parents didn't dare to come, and were deliberately stalling for time. However, as soon as she finished speaking, a young man in a suit wearing glasses walked in. He was holding a bag and panting. He didn't look too good. Today, the boss had insisted on driving a convertible sports car. Great, it had just rained. He could only let him come to Neely University first. Miss Pei, boss is coming soon. The assistant explained carefully. She did not dare to tell Bai Yunj that Delaney had gone back to change. Bai Yunj looked up and asked, where is he? Boss asked me to come and listen first. He'll be here soon. After the assistant finished speaking, a mocking look appeared in Angel's eyes. As a parent, you don't even dare to come? Angel leaned against the sofa and said coldly and sarcastically, in that case, I want to know how you want to deal with her. Your family's young lady is very good at offending people. The assistant, who had been speaking obediently to Bai Yunj, quickly got into character. He smiled meaningfully and asked, deal with her? She offended our Angel family. Don't you think she should? The assistant adjusted his tie and interrupted him gently. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm the assistant to the CEO of Delaney Group. P.S. The monthly votes have exceeded 1,000. After writing today's update, there's still a double update. The monthly votes have exceeded 1,500. Continue to update. They have been very impressive these 2 days. Master Pei is still at the top of the monthly votes list. Old Su continued to update after guarding Master Pei's ranking. After a few chapters, Master Du should be out. Chapter 838. As soon as he finished speaking, Angel, who was still full of sarcasm, gradually stopped and looked up at him. How was this possible? He remembered that Delaney only had one son. How could he have a daughter? Besides, didn't Fernand say that this girl had no background? She was really Delaney's daughter. Was this called no background? Or Fernand's had long wanted to marry Delaney? Angel's mind buzzed, but the assistant smiled. Before anyone else could react, he placed the gold-plated business card on the table. This is our corporation's legal number. Mr. Angel, please accept it. Then the assistant smiled and said, the corporation hasn't fought a lawsuit for a long time. The legal team has been very free recently, so don't worry. The meaning behind his words was obvious. I'll wait for you to tear it apart. At this moment, the vice principal's expression also changed and he froze. He did not expect this exchange student to be related to the Delaney Group. The scientific research field had been in a slump for the past 2 years. Before the Higgins family fell behind, the Angel family had always been the dominant one. Although the Delaney Group was known as the #1 in technology, it was still a small family and a new corporation. However, for so many years, the Angel family's scientific research had not been able to cause any big waves. Therefore, when Delaney bought the patent for a sky-high price and started a new project, the Delaney Group almost set off the mainstream of technology. After a beautiful turnaround, the Angel family had no way to fight back. This year's asset evaluation was on par with the Angel family's Angel Group. You Angel's expression did not look too good. Everyone knew that the Delaney Group's legal team was definitely the best in the country. They had never failed for so many years. They used such a team to resolve campus disputes. The vice principal knew how to read people's expressions and immediately smiled. It's a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. Actually, it's all a conflict between students. There's no need to take it seriously. He beat around the bush. Mr. Delaney's career is rising now. I don't think he'll find an opponent for himself over such a small matter, right? As soon as he finished speaking. Soon, a voice sounded from outside the door. Who said it's a small matter? Everyone turned around and saw Delaney in a suit and leather shoes. He straightened his back and had 7 or 8 bodyguards behind him. His aura was oppressive. How was this a school visit? He was clearly here to cause trouble. Bei Yunj. She had asked him to come to school, so why did he bring so many people with him? Yunj, how is it? Did you suffer any grievances? Delaney did not even look at the person opposite him. He immediately showed concern for Bei Yunj with a kind gaze. Bei Yunj. No. That's good. Delaney nodded in satisfaction. When he turned around, he realized that the person opposite him was very familiar. Mr. Angel? Delaney raised his eyebrows and smiled in surprise. I didn't expect to see you here. Angel couldn't sit still either. This is your daughter? When Delaney heard that, he was secretly happy. She couldn't hide the smile on her face. How could that be? Actually, Miss Pei is considered my friend. Your friend? After Angel asked, Lilia's face froze. She didn't expect Bei Yunj to hook up with Delaney. Then before Angel could speak, the little assistant said enthusiastically, Boss, old Mr. Angel wants you to deal with Miss Pei. Chapter 839. Hearing this, Delaney's eyes turned cold as he asked with a cold smile. Deal with it? I wonder what Yunj did to make you so angry? The vice principal was the first to speak. It was Bei Yunj who wanted Lilia to drop out of school, so this misunderstanding happened. With that said, before Delaney could say anything, a retort sounded from the door. Nonsense. Everyone turned to look. It was Yelena, the principal, and Wendy, who had just spoken. Wendy had only come to see how Bei Yunj had been taught a lesson. After all, Mr. Angel was already here. Wouldn't Bei Yunj lose a layer of skin? However, she did not expect the current situation to be completely different from what she had imagined. What's your name? How dare you? Before the vice principal could finish speaking, Principal Worrell's expression was livid as he interrupted him with a terrible tone. Principal John, it's been hard on you to deal with a student's matter after returning to Neely. The vice principal's gaze was evasive. When he was placed in Neely University, everyone knew that he was from the Angel family. This time, hearing Principal Worrell say this, he felt even more guilty. Principal Worrell, I just think that this student's behavior is bad, so we must. Shut up. The veins on Principal Worrell's forehead were starting to pop. Usually, it was fine if John was biased occasionally, but he could not be bothered. But now he even dared to touch him. Yelena, continue. Principal Worrell said. This matter. It's clearly because Wendy and Lilia stole our team's USB flash drive. Yelena did not hide anything and repeated the entire matter. She added, if you don't believe me, we still have a video. Instantly, Lilia and Wendy could not stand still. Principal Worrell, my granddaughter has been studying here for 2 years. Why do you have to make such a fuss in the 3rd year? Just get Lilia to apologize and punish her. After knowing the truth, Angel changed his words and said in a low voice, I hope Principal Worrell can give me some face. With that said, the sound of a mineral water bottle being crushed abruptly rang out from the side. In the blink of an eye, he saw Bei Yunj standing up casually and throwing the crushed mineral water bottle into the rubbish bin. Her bright and languid eyes were filled with coldness. His intimidating aura made people inexplicably fearful. Without saying a word, Principal Worrell felt inexplicably terrified. Principal Worrell felt his scalp go numb. Was this a joke? If he gave Angel face, who could appease this ancestor? After regaining his senses, Worrell immediately said, John, from today onwards, you are suspended from all positions in the school. Lilia and Wendy were involved in serious matters and were dealt with according to their own will. As an insider, Paul has seriously disrupted the school's discipline and will be penalized once. Instantly, not only the students, but even Angel and the vice principal's expressions changed. It was clearly a small matter, so why did it become so serious? Because of Delaney? However, Delaney Group and Angel Group were still on par with each other. Why did Principal Worrell have to be so ruthless? Suddenly, Principal Worrell walked over to Bei Yunj and greeted her warmly. "Hello, classmate Pei." However, he couldn't help but feel uneasy. How was your experience in school these past few days? He had almost caused trouble in just one afternoon. Bei Yunj glanced at him and smiled lazily. "Not bad. Your school even sent my high school a letter of expulsion. If not for the fact that I entered high school through donations, I would have found it quite scary." P.S. Third update. Chapter 840. Principal Worrell's smile froze. If not for the fact that there were people present, he would have blown John's head off. In order to get Zhong Shenglin and Marcus to relent, how much effort had he put in? He had gone to the square for afternoon tea in the afternoon, and this dog dared to send a letter of expulsion to his school. Did he know how much he had spent to get Bei Yunj to become a professor at Neely University? "I'll get someone to change it immediately. Student Pei, don't worry about this," Principal Worrell said immediately. At this moment, Delaney could not understand Bei Yunj anymore. With her standard, she even donated a building to enroll? Did the big boss have so many tricks up his sleeves? "I still have something on, so I'll go back first." Bei Yunj said goodbye politely and walked out. Delaney immediately chased after her. "Master Pei, are we still going to recruit people from Neely University in the future?" "Up to you." Just as Bei Yunj finished speaking, someone walked over. "Hello, Student Pei. I'm Duan Chuang, the Deputy Chief of CI-7 Neely Branch. I wonder if you're interested in CI-7. Duan Chuang handed the name card to Bei Yunj. Delaney glared at Duan Chuang fiercely for poaching people back then. Duan Chuang turned around and saw Delaney's hateful gaze. This person looked familiar. "No need. I won't be staying in Neely for long." Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched. This was the first time Duan Chuang had been rejected. He was stunned for a long time before smiling. "In that case, here's my name card. You can contact me if you need anything." With that said, he handed the name card to Bei Yunj. After Duan Chuang left, Delaney said sourly, "Master Pei, where did so many people come from?" "I don't know." Bei Yunj stuffed it into her pocket. After entering the classroom, she put the name card in Yelena's book. Coincidentally, from today onwards, she did not have to return to Neely University. In the principal's office. "Principal Worrell, are you going to embarrass the Angel family like this?" Angel's expression turned ugly. "Don't you already know what your granddaughter has done?" Worrell asked. "But that's my granddaughter, Headmaster Worrell. Are you willing to side with the Dreenii and defend me?" Angel questioned. Worrell took off his glasses and said calmly, "As an academic, I don't understand the conflict between you and Delaney. But I'm on Bei Yunj's side this time, not any of you." Hearing this, Angel suddenly froze. He asked instinctively, "What's so scary about Bei Yunj?" Worrell looked at him deeply. "She's the one you should be most afraid of. As a friend, I have to remind you not to provoke her. Otherwise, you will find that no one can help you when the time comes." After that, Worrell ordered them to leave. When they returned to the classroom, everyone realized that Lilia had really transferred schools. She was transferred to an aristocratic school that the Angel family had invested in. At the door, Wendy grabbed Lilia's hand in a sorry state. "Yaya, can you bring me along? I've been expelled too. I don't know where to go." Lilia's face darkened as she flung her hand away, her eyes filled with disgust. "Bring you along? Can you afford the tuition fees of an aristocratic university?" Wendy's face turned pale. Just as Lilia was about to leave, Wendy gritted her teeth and said, "But I can help you do anything. As long as you help me." Lilia suddenly stopped in her tracks, a dark look flashing across her eyes. "P.S. Fourth update, I'm making up for it. Be obedient and vote more monthly to stabilize Master Pei's ranking." It's easy to drop in the first few days of the month. Old Sue will go and make up for it first. Thank you for your support. Chapter 841. Lilia's eyes were filled with resentment and indignation. She did not expect that Bei Yunj, who did not have any family backing him, could really make her drop out of school. Principal Worrell had even eliminated the Angel family's connections in Neely University. In the future, it would be even more difficult for the Angel family to do anything. She glanced at Wendy coldly and suddenly smiled. Sure, I'll pay for your tuition until you graduate. How about that? On the road, Bei Yunj looked at the computer in his hand again and held it in. You're really heavy, do you know that? With that, Bei Yunj realized that the system was installed in the computer and would not automatically turn on. He had to make it as soon as possible, no matter how much it cost. At this moment Marcus called. Bei Yunj placed the laptop on the stone tiles of the flower bed. As soon as the call connected, he heard Marcus ask, "Gur, have you tried the dual system outside?" He had received several calls in the afternoon, all asking about the new product. The dual system was a project that Bei Yunj had been working on since his previous life. However, the original product was a dual system robot. The Y system was a normal system, but its level was beyond current scientific research. As for the G system, it was an in-depth model. Not only was it extremely private to the user, but some of its hidden functions were terrifying. Most importantly, the Gemini system could accurately recognize human emotions and language. Its imitation ability had reached the peak of artificial intelligence. Bei Yunj replied leisurely, "It's too heavy. When can we get the materials?" Marcus' eyelids twitched. "Do you really want such good special materials?" Bei Yunj's special materials to make a robot were hard to come by. Otherwise if it breaks we'll have to make another one. Bei Yunj added. "It's very expensive." Marcus was speechless. Why didn't you consider the price when you were playing with more than 20 miniature pinhole cameras on the computer? Marcus put on a fake smile. "But I think, Gur, with the cost of the materials you want, you can make dozens of robots for fun." Bei Yunj pretended not to hear her and asked again, "When will it be available?" Marcus. "Wait for another 2 weeks. It will take time for their materials to be simulated to the standard you need." Bei Yunj replied, "Okay, I plan to let Higgins do the project. I'll go over to take a look in the next 2 days." All right. Marcus also knew that Bei Yunj was the heir of Higgins Group. He didn't forget to say, "Remember to prepare for the award ceremony the day after tomorrow." Yes. Higgins Group. Mai Weiyu walked into Shangyan's office and threw the report on the table. Her eyes were filled with anger. "Why aren't you willing to change this project?" Shangyan's tone was indifferent and natural. "Only she has the final say in her project." Mai Weiyu pursed her red lips. Her eyes were filled with sarcasm as she laughed. "An outsider wants to take down Higgins?" Mai Weiyu was the illegitimate daughter of the second head of the Higgins family. She had only been recognized by the second head of the Higgins family 5 years ago, because of her business and research abilities. However, her name had never been changed. "Shangyan, how do you think a young girl like her has the capital to fight against the people in the family?" Mai Weiyu smiled and couldn't hide the jealousy in her tone. "Or do you have other reasons for helping her?" P.S. Fourth update. Chapter 842. It was as if he was born to be the center of attention. The smile on Bei Yunj's lips could not be hidden as she quickly ran towards him. Seeing this, Hoshidu immediately reached out and held the young lady's shoulders. He let her hug his waist. The man looked down at her. His laughter was low and hoarse. It was so gentle and ambiguous that it made her blush and her heart race. "Why are you running? You didn't bring an umbrella?" Hoshidu's slender and well-defined hand touched her black hair. It was a little wet. It's only a short distance from the airport. Hence, she did not have time to open an umbrella and ran over. The people not far away could not help but take a few more glances at the two of them. Indeed, the airport was a good place to torture single people. Hoshida glanced at her a few times, then watched as Bei Yunj suddenly took away his luggage. Her bright and beautiful eyes were a little serious. "Brother, I'll help you carry it." But as soon as she finished speaking, It just so happened that not far away, someone rushed over recklessly. Huashida's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He hugged the young lady's waist and easily turned his head to place her on the steps. Then he took the luggage. Bei Yunj was like a human-shaped doll as she was carried to the side. "Sir, I'm sorry. I was in a hurry and bumped into your girlfriend." That person apologized sincerely. The man glanced at Bei Yunj. Then he turned his head and curled his lips casually. "Okay, be careful next time." Bei Yunj. Then, before Bei Yunj could react, she had just raised her head when the light in front of her was blocked. Huashidu pulled down his scarf and slowly tied it around Bei Yunj. He stared at her for a while and suddenly bent down. "Brother, take a look." The man's deep and magnetic voice was not serious. It was frivolous and gentle. "Brother's little girlfriend, have you lost a little weight?" She was surrounded by his warm and pleasant scent. The man's gaze was even more intense. Bei Yunj's ears instantly burned. She shrank into the scarf and turned her head away. Seeing this, Tian, Huashida did not continue to tease the little girl, and brought her back to the hotel. "Brother, you're not going to meet old Mr. Fernandes?" Bei Yunj asked. "You've seen him?" Huashidu asked. Bei Yunj's attention as she looked at the scenery outside. "You'll see him sooner or later." The man's answer was not clear. Bei Yunj did not dwell on this question. Instead, she smelled the familiar and pleasant cold scent on the scarf, and felt a little relieved unconsciously. Huashidu also noticed the redness in her eyes. Before Bei Yunj could react, the man's warm and dry palm covered her forehead, and brought her to his side naturally. "Sleep, sleep. I'll call you when we get there." Bei Yunj leaned against the man's leg, and looked at Huashidu for a while before she turned away. Looking Huashidu still did not know what Bei Yunj was thinking. He quite liked the little girl's occasional actions. He only took a thin blanket to cover her, and rubbed his fingers against her cheek affectionately. "Good night, Yunyan." Just as they were about to get out of the car, Sung Su received several messages, all of which were sent by that person. He did not know who had revealed that Master Du was coming to Neely. Sung Su groaned in his heart. He only hoped that he would not bump into that young lady. Unexpectedly, he bumped into her the moment he got out of the car. Outside the hotel, there was a long corridor to shelter them from the rain. "Where is Huashidu?" Lilia gritted her teeth and made up her mind to tell him about Bei Yunj. "P.S. Master Pei, I came at a bad time. I can only feed you some dog food to express my sincerity. Thank you, darlings, for helping Master Pei maintain the monthly votes." Chapter 843. The moment Sung Su got out of the car, he was blocked by Lilia. He immediately stopped Lilia. "Miss, Master Du doesn't want to see anyone yet." Lilia pursed her lips and looked at Sung Su coldly. "Get out of the way." "Miss, don't make things difficult for me." Sung Su's tone was gentle, but he had no intention of letting her go. Seeing this, Lilia suddenly rushed to the back seat. But not long after, she was stopped again. "You." Lilia was exasperated. Suddenly, the back door slowly opened. Lilia looked up and saw a handsome and dignified man walking out with his long, straight legs under his black suit pants. Before she could speak excitedly, the man turned around. His clear and lazy eyes were filled with gentleness, and his thin red lips curled up. She saw with her own eyes that the man, who had always been indifferent and unapproachable, leaned forward and carefully held the young girl in his arms. It was as if he was hugging a precious treasure. Lilia's smile froze completely as her gaze landed on the person in his arms. Bei Yunj. Lilia's expression was ugly. She did not expect to see this scene with her own eyes one day. The man only glanced at her casually, his gaze never on her. Then, just as Huashidu was about to leave, Lilia suddenly said, "Huashidu, this woman is not that simple. She clearly knows Delaney, and she even forced me to drop out of Neely University." Lilia gritted her teeth as she said the last sentence, her eyes dark and indignant. Huashidu stopped in his tracks. Then, just as Lilia was overjoyed, she suddenly heard the girl's clear and lazy voice. "Brother, have we arrived at the hotel?" Bei Yunj leaned lazily against the man's chest, her beautiful eyes sleepy. Every time she leaned against him, she would fall asleep quickly. The quality of her sleep was very good. Yes, we're here. Do you want to sleep in the room for a while more? The man lowered his voice and laughed as he asked in her ear. However, the man's voice was magnetic and hopelessly sexy. Sung-soo, who was beside her, could not bear to watch this scene. He only pitied Lilia for a few seconds. Did he have to cause trouble when Master Du and young Miss Pei were together? What was the point? When Miss Pei was by Master Du's side, did Master Du have eyes for anyone else? Lilia's expression was extremely ugly. Subsequently, Bei Yunj also caught a glimpse of Lilia and raised her eyebrows. After the two of them looked at each other for a few seconds, Bei Yunj suddenly laughed. She lazily leaned against the man's chest, raised her fair and slender arms, and hooked them around his neck. She gently raised her head and rubbed against the man's perfect jawline in an ambiguous and ticklish manner. It was a straightforward declaration of sovereignty. Brother, my waist hurts from being in the car for so long. Bei Yunj's red lips curved upwards. Her lazy voice was just the right amount of flirtatious. You have to help me rub it. It was so seductive that it made people's blood boil. Their faces blushed and their hearts beat faster. At the same time, the man's eyes darkened. Even Sung-soo felt that this conversation made him blush. As expected, when Lilia thought of how an ascetic and noble man like Hoshidu would do such an outrageous thing in the car, her face turned pale. She gritted her teeth and looked at Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj was still careless as she drew circles on the man's chest with her fingertips. Brother, don't keep quiet. Who knew? The next moment, the man's eyes were so dark that they could not be seen clearly. He slowly swept his gaze over her. Sung-soo, just one room is enough. Bei Yunj's smile froze. P.S. When Master Du came out, our monthly votes started to drop. Don't you all like Master Du? The monthly votes ranking is dropping. Be good and work hard to send Master Pei to the front row? Pinch. The monthly votes reached 2,000 plus chapters. Because the management children were disobedient, they spent a few hundred monthly votes. You're tuning into the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.